day here as the sun shines down on the cars. The temperature a little bit better than we've seen over Friday and Saturday's practice and qualifying sessions. It's a little bit different of a scenario for these drivers as they get ready to take on the track for 300 laps. Pace car makes its way onto pit road. The field in the hands now of Carl Edwards. Edwards on the outside, Harvick on the inside. Green flag in the air, we're underway. Carl Edwards will lead lap number 1. Kevin Harvick tucked in behind him in second. Brad Keselowski, Kurt Busch, Kyle Larson, the only chaser right now not in the top 10. Only non-chaser up there is Kyle Larson. He's been very strong throughout the entire weekend. We look for big things for him for the remainder of the chase. Now looking to the inside, that 41 of Kurt Busch, trying to get by the 2 of Brad Keselowski.
You can see already what makes this racetrack very special. You can see the 41 just trying to run a little below the 2, just below those white lines. You can see the banking falls off. So as Kurt Busch tries to make the pass around Keselowski, when he's low, he's actually on the flatter part of the racetrack. It's less banking, so it's very difficult to try to make this pass.
Progressive banking here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. There are multiple grooves. It's just there is definitely a preferred groove here around the Magic Mile. On the top of your screen, as the names scroll across, you'll see the yellow bar underneath the names of the drivers that are in the chase. There is one driver who has a green bar underneath his name, and that is Denny Hamlin. He has already won in this first round. He will advance to the second round.
And already we talked about qualifying on Friday and how important it was just to make the start of the race a little less stressful. We have 3 chasers right here. The 78 of Martin Truex, the 1 of Jamie McMurray, back there in traffic trying to battle it out.
And Steve, what makes it so tough is when you talked about it at the start of the race, you may only pit 3 times. You may only have a few shots to make your car better. So with a short amount of pit stops possibly today, the further you can be in the front, the bigger advantage it is. So starting back here in the middle of this mess, you're more likely to be in a wreck, but also you've already lost your track position. You've got to try to find a way to get it back.
It's just harder on your equipment, Rick. Back here, there's nowhere to relax. Clint Boyer, he's trying to pass the 14, but he also has to look into his mirror. Such a great shot off the bumper, the front bumper, the 15. This shows you the multiple grooves, the different paving seams. As he goes down into turn 1, you're going to see how flat this entry is. He's going to probably look to the inside of the 14, look for a little air on his left front fender. And you see right there, the left rear of the 14 catches that paving seam, and then how flat the exit is, it makes these corners very difficult to maneuver.
One of the flattest racetracks we race on. Clint Boyer, what a great shot that is from the front bumper.
And you see how important it is to get off the corner well. He couldn't get in the throttle. You heard how long it was getting in the throttle. And as he couldn't get in the throttle, the 14 of Tony Stewart was just driving away. So now Tony's up out of the groove to see if Clint can take advantage of it. He's all the way down to the bottom. That's where he's got to go because the hole was opening up. Still, the 14 got a good run on the exit, was able to pull him down the back straightaway. Clint's going to keep trying to put pressure on him. He's going to keep trying to get to his bumper, to his left rear quarter panel. That's all you can do. You just got to keep going and going and going and hoping that guy makes a mistake.
So Clint Boyer back in 26th, trying to make the move toward the front. Marty, there's another guy up a little bit closer to the front than he is.
A little closer to the front, not too much closer. They're in 22nd right now for Martin Truex Jr. I was talking to Cole Pern about starting back here earlier today, and Steve, you can talk about this. We will have split strategies all day long here at New Hampshire. He said what we really hope for is an early caution, and then everybody pits, we'll stay out. So at some point, the 78 team feels like they have to get off strategy from everybody else, Steve, in order to gain that track position, because it really would be tough to pass your way from 22nd to the front.
You know, Marty, it is tough to pass your way, but at some point, every car on this racetrack is going to be in traffic because just like Cole was telling you, Marty, when he means split strategies, he means without a doubt there are going to be cautions where a percentage of the field pits. Maybe it's the top 10, Rick. Maybe it's the top 15. But even if you're the leader, unlike a place where you put tires on all the time, you're not guaranteed to be the leader all day. You're going to come out of the pits one time back in 10th or 15th. You're going to have to have a car that's good in traffic, and that's hard to do here in New Hampshire.
Joey Logano just got by Kyle Larson, so we're looking back off of Logano's bumper to Kyle Larson. But just to put a period on the 78 story, they made an announcement earlier today that they will switch to Toyota starting in 2016. So a manufacturer change for the Furniture Row team. And they also announced that Martin Truex Jr. would be back in 2016 running for a championship.
And that's not a small announcement. Switching manufacturers is a huge undertaking. Not only the sheet metal on the car, but the engines that you're supplied, how they go into your race car, touches a ton of the mechanical aspects of the race car. So a big undertaking for the 78 team over the offseason.
From the drop of the green flag, it has been Carl Edwards out in front. He's led the first 11 laps. Jeff Gordon making the start today. Puts it at number 789, nearly 23 years in a row, starting all the races. Right along with different drivers through multiple HD feeds and follow the race action with a live leaderboard. Tune in at NASCAR.com/Race Buddy. And the race is on for the lead. Kevin Harvick looks to the inside of Carl Edwards as they come out of turn number 4. This has been about the last 4 laps now that Harvick has been applying the pressure to the 19 of Carl Edwards. But now to the inside, that left rear quarter panel. How do you pass around here, Jeff?
It's difficult. You can see how Harvick gets a good run getting in the corner and through the middle. But as long as Carl Edwards can leave the corner with good acceleration speed, it's going to be hard for Harvick to make the pass. You can see now Harvick's trying to make this outside line work. He's one of the few people that I've seen make that work off of turn 4, trying to help him have more speed down the straightaway by making the exit of the corner a little bit longer. He's able to go a little bit straighter and be in the throttle a little bit sooner.
Lennon Castle in the 40 on pit road now. There was some smoke coming out of the car, so they brought him onto pit road.
Yeah, Kevin Harvick is applying just a tremendous amount of pressure to Carl Edwards. Carl's doing a great job of running his own line. Even right here, the 4 is going to get all the way up to the number, but Carl Edwards in the 19 should have a much straighter shot off the corner, perhaps carry that momentum.
That time Carl got high enough for where Kevin Harvick was able to be in the lane that he wanted to be in. He didn't have to have his left sides on that flat, and that's the difference in that pass. Carl gave him enough room for Kevin to be where he wanted his car, and Kevin was able to complete the pass.
Harvick charged into 1 a little bit harder than the 19, and new leader in New Hampshire, Kevin Harvick. And it's time now for our Subway Fresh Take. We'll start with Dave Burns.
Rick, the 19 car just got passed by Kevin Harvick. His crew chief, Darian Grubb, told me this morning, we don't have to win today, but our incentive to get to victory lane is to block it from the 4 car. They know that if they're going to win the championship, Carl Edwards, the 19 team, that it's going to have to go through Harvick. And if they can keep Harvick from winning and advancing, they would. Kelly?
Jimmy Johnson has 3 wins here at New Hampshire, but none of those have come during the chase. But his crew chief, Chad Knaus, told me he was feeling pretty good about the car they brought here today. But when I asked Jimmy about it, he said, it's just so hard. You can have a car that feels really good in practice, but the track always seems to change during the race. So it's up to you to make the adjustments. Right now, Jimmy saying that he is snug under throttle and loose in. He started 5th, running 5th now, Marty.
Kelly, New Hampshire was never Matt Kenseth's best racetrack. He started 13th today, but he's moved up to the 10th. Then he went to Joe Gibbs Racing. In his 4 races at New Hampshire with JGR, he's finished top 10 in every one of those races. So a little forward progress with a car that yesterday wasn't quite like they would like it, Jason Ratcliffe told me. Several changes on the 20 car. Obviously, those changes were in the right direction. Kenseth moving forward here this afternoon, Mike.
Unlike Kenseth, Marty, this has been a very good racetrack for Ryan Newman over the course of his career. In fact, he's collected 3 victories here. So he certainly knows what it feels like to have a winning race car. I spoke with him just moments before the green flag, and he told me he feels like he has a good race car, but they need to adjust on it throughout the course of the day to get it to victory lane. He feels like he's just a little bit off in speed compared to, say, the 4 car and the 2 car, but he feels like it's definitely a top 5 car. And if they make the right adjustments throughout the course of the afternoon, they could be a force to be reckoned with. Rick?
You, Mike. Points continue to be an issue for everyone trying to get maximum points. Jeff, you noticed something about this 19 car when that 4 got by him.
You can see just in front of the left rear tire, you can see the quarter panel was wrinkled up a little bit and it was smoking. You can see the left rear tire's got the yellow rubbed off. See a little bit of haze of smoke. Just a little bit of contact maybe right there. on the straightaway with Harvick, and now he's got a little bit of a tire rub. So I don't think it's enough tire rub to affect him, but we saw last week with Harvick, he ended up cutting that tire. They're very nervous about this right now.
The lettering, the Goodyear lettering off the left rear of that 19 of Carl Edwards. So out in front of the field, Kevin Harvick. He has a 1 second lead over Kurt Busch, who's moved up to second. Keselowski is third. Carl Edwards has dropped all the way back to fourth. Town USA for preseason NHL game. Steven Stamkos and the Lightning face off against Sidney Crosby and the Penguins in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. The town that won Kraft's Hockeyville USA contest. Coverage begins Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, followed by one of my favorite movies, Slapshot, on NBC-SM. Kevin Harvick has a 2 second lead now over Brad Keselowski. Definitely one of the favorites throughout the weekend. One of the strongest cars. Now we've just heard on the radio the 24 of Jeff Gordon not happy with the handling of the 24. Here's what he had to say on the radio.
Hey, trouble here, guys. I mean, we got no front grip or no rear grip. Yeah, we'll get it, man. Stay with it. We'll get it.
And guys, since then he's told Alan Gustis on the radio, still extremely tight from the middle of the corner off. The biggest problem is 3 and 4 for Jeff Gordon, especially the exit there. He told Alan, I've gone up one on the track bar inside. Alan Gustis radioed to him, we're going to put a spring rubber in the right rear when we come in next time. Actually, it's already attached in the car. They just need to slide it in there to that right rear spring. Eddie DeHaan, his spotter, said, hang on, bud, for as long as you can. We'll get you fixed up on this first stop.
Yeah, Marty, and I think I always say it's not just what they say, but the emotion in which they say it. And Jeff there was seemed pretty calm, gave good feedback. But you heard Alan's quick response. Hang in there, bud. We'll get it. And that's a crew chief knowing we're 32 laps into a 300-lap race. While Jeff Gordon doesn't like the handle of his race car, and you don't want to take that lightly from a guy that's won as many races as Jeff Gordon has, you're still running 12th. He knows how this race plays out. There's going to be multiple strategies. The track's going to change. That's the difference between being able to climb down off the pit box and get water and the poor guy that's in here trying to put together corner after corner after corner.
And Steve, you mentioned, we're only 32 laps now, 34 into this 300-lap race, but this really is one of the fastest races that the Sprint Cup Series runs.
It is. It's one of the fastest races, and the problem for the crew chiefs is around lap 225. Between 225 and 240, decisions are going to be made on when to pit and when not to pit. And if you do it incorrectly, if you guess wrong and the field pits against you and you really end up behind on fuel and track position, it's a lonely feeling because the world might not know you're in bad shape. The driver might not even know you're in bad shape, but as a crew chief, you know that you have given up the opportunity to win the race.
One driver that's a little more comfortable than the rest has to be the driver of the 11, Denny Hamlin, who won at Chicagoland last week, automatically advancing into round number 2. 34-year-old out of Chesterfield, Virginia.
And you heard him when we talked to him before the race started that they had some things they wanted to learn for Phoenix. So they're already thinking about 6 or 7 races down the road. How can we use this race to help us in the future? Every other team here has to decide this race could determine our future.
And into the wall is the 43 of Eric Almirola, and the caution will come out.
That hurt.
Was running 16th. Anytime you see a car up against the wall like that, you normally think a right front tire goes down, especially after a comment like what we just heard Eric Almirola say. That hurt. Probably didn't have any warning as to when that was going to go on him.
These long straights here, if you do have a problem with the right front, the angle of impact is always is tough. It always you don't hit head on, but you hit at an angle that really hurts. You heard him say how it hurt, and that doesn't surprise me.
You see a lot of fluid coming out from underneath the car. Let's take a look at what happened.
Yeah, he's already in the wall, but you can see there's he obviously had something go wrong, and where he is against the wall at that point, there's nothing he can do. He's along for the ride and gets up against the wall, and the wall I always describe as the wall just eats the car. It just grabs the car and it won't let go of it. We saw us winding that down, which is a sign to the officials that, hey, I'm okay.
Yeah, Jeff, you mentioned it. This track and its design, it's a lot like Martinsville. It's a true paperclip, straightaways and round corners. You see here Eric Almirola at the end of the front stretch as he enters turn 1. The car starts to turn, and then just goes straight at that point. It stopped turning. It's heading up the racetrack. He gets into the wall, and much like you said, Jeff, it's the angle of the impact. You know, at a big rounder track like a Charlotte, even though you're going much faster, you kind of get that wide entry and you're running parallel to the wall a little bit more. Here, you're running almost 90 degrees into that turn one wall, so when you do have an issue, the angle's real high, which definitely doesn't make it any better.
That's a good sight, though, seeing Eric get out of the car. A little gingerly, but out of the car now. He'll make the trip to the infield care center. It's a mandatory trip. Anytime they have to get out of the car, they will take an ambulance to the infield care center, and they will be checked out. Pit road is open, and
about options, Rick.
We've got 37 laps on our tires.
We talked about options. Everyone's coming. There's no doubt to me that everyone's coming for at least fuel, but is it going to be right side tires or 4 tires? If we're somewhere towards 5th to 15th, I could see putting 2 tires on it, Marty.
Well, Steve, it took Kevin Harvick 20 laps to get to the lead. Top left of your screen, he comes to the pit road as the leader. He said he needs more drive off at the exit. Rear grip, the last third of the corner is his biggest concern. Wants a little tape off the grill, too. Just 2 tires, Mike.
And Kurt Busch, 2 tires as well. A quarter turn under the right rear. The car's been too loose, Dave.
Second place, Keselowski. Right side tires a little wedged for better fire off. As for Carl Edwards, his car was tight in the center of the corner. He'll get 4 tires and a slight air pressure adjustment. And Kevin Harvick will be first off pit road.
Look at the race off pit road, brought to you by Geico. Denny Hamlin makes up 4 spots. Tire change. Life's better when we're connected. And by Kawasaki and the Buell Pro Series. Getting ready for our first restart from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We'll take a look at the NBC restart zone. Those lines we have put in there. They're like the first down lines in football. So they're not on the track, but that indicates where the lead car or the control car, which is going to be Kevin Harvick, he has the opportunity to start at that first line coming out of turn 4, and he has to start by the second line, or the flagman will then throw the green flag to start the race. Now, there are going to be pointers that are going to come in as well, and this is all information that we're giving you, the fans, to be able to watch and see what takes place on a restart. Now, when NASCAR goes to review a restart, if there is any question, they do not use the NBC start zone lines or the pointers that will indicate the speeds. That's all information that we use here at NBC, and NASCAR will use different data when they determine if someone has jumped or not on a restart.
And so why a restart's been such a topic of conversation, the reason why is because there's a huge advantage in being the leader, and the leader wants to control the pace. He wants to beat the field into turn 1. So as the leader, you try to gain any advantage you can. And as a second place guy, you don't want the leader to beat you. You want to be the first one into turn 1. So everything's a competition, and that's why the restart zone has been talked about so much, because everybody's trying to use it as their advantage.
2 by 2. We will go into turn 3, and it is Kevin Harvick who has chose the outside line. And Brad Keselowski will be on the inside.
Not gonna go.
There you see the pointers and the speeds. Again, pit road speed is 45 miles per hour. And it looks as though NASCAR is going to go around one more time before they give them the green flag.
And so what NASCAR asked the leader to do, he asked the leader to keep pace car speed. You know, try to keep the pace of the pace car as you're going. When you get to that first line, as you talked about, Rick, you can go. You got to go by that second line. But before you get to that line, you're supposed to keep the pace of the pace car. You're not supposed to slow down. You're not supposed to speed up.
While you're watching these races, you can watch a live stream of every Sprint Cup Series race, combined with additional camera angles, interactive driver stats, and track information, like right here at New Hampshire, with NBC Sports Live Extra. It's available on your laptop, tablet, smartphone, and connected TVs. NBC Sports Live Extra. It brings you closer to every race, just like we're trying to do with the NBC Sports Restart Zone, as well as the pointers indicating the speed as we come up here on our first restart. So Harvick, as the control car, the lead car, gets to choose inside or outside line. He chooses the outside line here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and you see their speeds right around that 45 mile per hour number that the pace car was taking them around the track. Green flag back in the air. We're back underway.
This is going to be really interesting, Rick, because the top 4 cars, Harvick, Keselowski, Hamlin, and Kurt Busch, are all on 2 tires. Jimmy Johnson, Carl Edwards, they have 4 tires.
Just a 2-tire change. And here at New Hampshire, when you say 2-tire change, a lot of times you'll think, well, maybe just the right side tires. But here they could change left side tires as well.
They could. Right there, it looked like they all changed right side tires. But I think at some point during the race, if track position dictates it, you can only take rights or lefts. Sometimes lefts are your only option.
Jimmy Johnson trying to stay on the inside of that 11 and 88 down at the flattest part of the racetrack. There's Carl Edwards right behind him.
Dale Jr. doing a good job of trying to pinch the 48 down, trying not to give him the line that he wants. He wants the 48 below those white lines because that's where the banking falls off. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. did a really good job of clear the 48.
Junior moves up to 5th. Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin, Dale Earnhardt Jr. are the top 5. And our first caution came out when Eric Almirola got into the wall. He's out of the infield care center. Let's go to Kelly Stavast.
He's out, but that certainly was a hard hit. Eric, how are you feeling?
My pride's hurt a little bit. Just disappointed. I honestly don't know what happened. It's really early in the race to blow a right front tire, so I don't think that was it. But something happened in the right front, and when I got to turn 1, it didn't turn, and I hit the wall pretty hard. So disappointed for our Smithfield Ford Fusion team. We had a pretty good car. I thought we were running around 14th or 15th, and the track was kind of changing, and it seemed like it was maybe going to come our way, and something happened. So unfortunate, but we'll get ready for Dover.
Got another caution out. Glad to see you're okay.
This time it's Landon Castle, and Landon Castle will bring out our second caution. Saw Landon Castle smoking earlier. They brought him onto pit road to look at that car, and now he goes back out on the track, and they're nervous that there might have been a little fluid coming out of the 40. So the caution comes out.
He did a good job of using the road course down in turns 3 and 4. He didn't stay on the racetrack in case oil was coming out. He didn't oil down the whole racetrack. So good, smart move by him. Kelly?
We brought out the first caution. The left front had been knocked in a little bit, but it was a power steering leak. And that seems to be the issue here for the 40 car of Landon Castle.
He's up the track there. You see the smoke coming out.
And it's possible that he also did not have power steering. And, you think, well, golly, he doesn't have power steering. So what? Just be a tough guy and drive the car. But when you set these race cars up, you set it up thinking you're going to have power steering. So all the front end settings, the air pressures, the cambers, the casters, all those things in the front end are built to have power steering. When you lose it, it's very, very difficult to turn these race cars.
Pit road is open and was open when they went by the entrance. Nobody came. We'll go to commercial break and be right back. Want to get news, results, and highlights delivered straight to your inbox? Subscribe to the free official NASCAR newsletter at NASCAR.com/newsletter. Fastest lap time presented by Sprint. 50 laps in, Kevin Harvick with the fastest lap time at 28.643 seconds. Stop in at Sprint, cut your rate plan in half. Just bring in your Verizon or AT&T wireless bill and turn in that old phone. So the 40 of Landon Castle brings out the caution, second caution, and a lot of drivers mentioning there was fluid on the track that they thought they were hitting. Here's the 18.
That's where it started. They're saying oil in 3, yellow, yellow, yellow. Yellow's out. Found it.
And Kyle Busch, a little lighthearted there with the found that fluid that was on the track. So they have put the Speedy Dry down, Speed Zorb on the track, got the fluid taken care of, and now once again they're 2 by 2. Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski making up row number 1. Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, Casey Kane, and Carl Edwards are the top 10.
Carl Edwards fell back quite a bit on that last restart. He put on tires, but also he lost some spots on that restart, so he's all the way back in 10th after leading the race early.
Taking a closer look at row number 1 there. You see the speeds. Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick is the control car. He's the race leader. And there you see the NBC Sports restart zone as they come into it. Harvick back on the gas. Green flag back in the air. Denny Hamlin way up the racetrack. They're 1 and 2, but able to hold on and keep the 11 in the 4th spot. Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. looking to the inside of that 48. Jimmy Johnson not able to hold it all the way down there on the track. Johnson will stay in front. Kyle Busch to the inside of Matt Kenseth. Teammates fighting for position. Just behind Matt Kenseth, the 19 of Carl Edwards has slid into that spot. 3 wide as they go into turn number 3. Now 4 wide. 4 wide doesn't work around here, does it, Jeff?
Jamie Murray did the smarter thing. He lifted, got out of the throttle, allowed the 78 a little bit of room. Smart move by Murray.
And almost up against the wall was Kyle Larson. He had a little help there from the 14 of Tony Stewart, not giving him a lot of room as they came out of 4. Now Martin Truex Jr. And we see a little bit of smoke. There may have been some contact between the 14 and the 42. I believe the smoke's coming from the 42. We'll take a closer look. Maybe coming from the 14 though, because the 2 were very close as they came out of turn 4. Might be the 14, and it is.
Yeah, it looks like there's some damage perhaps on the front fender of the 14 where it's pushed in against the tire just a little bit. You know, it doesn't take a whole lot to knock these things in, but that's definitely, yeah, you see right here in the...
Can y'all tell if it's on your side?
You hear them talking about it. The left front fender on the 14 looks like it's pushed in.
Pretty bad tire rub. Yeah, that's the left side.
It's that left rear quarter panel. It got a little bit tight. That says they're going down the backstretch. You heard Tony make the comment, I've been hit on both sides. So a little bumping and banging early on as we've completed 57 laps.
That's a great example of how hard and difficult the restarts are here. You know, somebody slips up, next thing you know, you're 3 wide. You didn't, I mean, it just happened so quickly, and now you have a decision to make as you get down into the next corner.
The thing that's clearest in our minds as racers and fans of racing is a week ago, Kevin Harvick had a tire rub. You both mentioned, you know, risk versus reward. Do you stay out or do you come in and get that fixed? Does Tony Stewart need to come in and have that 14 check to make sure that he doesn't cut a tire down?
I wouldn't, because there's one big difference between last week at a mile and a half like Chicago and here in New Hampshire. We talk about New Hampshire and how wide and flat the corners are. One thing the flat corners do is the car doesn't move around very much. As you see the 11 or you see the 14 here come off the corner, the side skirts are already basically down against the racetrack. So when he goes down into the corner, the car doesn't travel very much. There isn't also a lot of deflection in the tire because there's not a lot of load on the tire. Where at at Chicago, there's a lot of deflection and the tire will rub more. Here at the flat track, it doesn't rub as much.
Saw the 48 of Jimmy Johnson get by the 11. 11 running a little bit higher line. Saw that on the restart, and now the 88 of Dale Earnhardt Jr. also is going to go by Denny. And way up against the wall was the 14 of Tony Stewart. And it's the left front that he has an issue with. Just as we mentioned, a tire rub turning into a little bit more.
And it's so difficult for the teams to make the decision. You know, the driver can smell the tire rubbing, he can see the smoke, but you don't know how much damage is being done to the tire. It's just such a difficult decision.
And as awful as this is going to say, this is going to be less of a penalty than pitting under green. So you see, if it goes flat way down on the straightaway, that allows a great miss by Kyle Larson, but that allows the 14 not to get into the wall. And now he's actually going to be able to pit under caution and not lose a lap. So it's risk versus reward. Fortunately, it went down in an area where Tony Stewart didn't have more damage happen to the race car, but short of anything underneath the car coming loose because of that flat tire, he's going to be just fine.
I think this might be the initial contact right there between the 78 the 14, but there was already a little bit of smoke there out of the right rear, it looked like also, or excuse me, the left rear.
That's what makes the sport so hard. You have to understand, though, what size track you're on, what the negatives are of the track. Everything is a judgment call. You can't use a rule of thumb against things like this. You have to understand the position you're in, the risk versus reward, whether you should pit or not.
And as they all go by, at least a lot of the lead lap cars go by the entrance to pit road, strategy being played early. Marty?
Well, guys, we talked about some split strategy. There's Jeff Gordon pitting with a little split strategy. You see the 2-tire change for Gordon, who said his car feels like it's getting on the splitter, especially early in the run when he's very aggressive with it. Mike?
Clint Boyer's been loose throughout the course of the day. After making adjustments on the last run, he felt like it was a little bit better. They'll do a 2-tire change right sides only. Kelly?
Paul Menard in the 27 car in need of a good result here. He said he's been tight in the center. He's been working the track bar to try to help it out, but that's only making him loose, and it was a 2-tire stop for the 27.
Jeff Gordon.
First of those lead lap cars to come into pit road. There you see on the bottom of the screen, came in 12th, out 25th, and just changed two tires. A lot of people may question Alan Gustafson as to why he only changed 2 coming on pit road. But Steve, their pit stall is towards the turn 4 into pit road. That's a difficult stall to be in to make that call 2 or 4 tires.
That's the tough part, Marty. When you peel off pit road, you don't know how many guys are going to follow you. Alan has to make a decision. He doesn't have time to change it. What surprises me, though, is cars farther down pit road continue to do too as well. I would think, Jeff, if I came on pit road with that few cars, 4 tires would have had to be the call.
And right now, all 13 of the top 13 spots chase drivers as we get ready for the restart. Harvick on the outside, Brad Keselowski on the inside as they dive into turn number 1. Kyle Busch way down, almost on the apron. Had the left side tires below the yellow line as they go through 1 and 2. And they're 3 wide as they go down the backstretch, entering turn 3. Kyle trying to hold it all the way down. That's pretty impressive. They remain 3 wide through the center of the turn before they separated. Kyle Busch drops behind the 2 that he was racing with. Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Denny Hamlin get just in front of him.
You may wonder why did Kyle Busch run down there, and you can't run down there once it goes green. When you go into turn 1 under caution, the cars are going so slow because they don't make any grip. The tires do not make grip the first time in that corner. So Kyle Busch just hung a left and got all the way on the apron and trying to make that pass. It didn't work, but again, it was worth the try because the pace is so slow because the tires just do not make grip.
Do you consider this a short track, Jeff?
100%. This is a short. I know it's 1 mile, and that's a big racetrack, but this race is just a big short track. Long, flat corners, everything about it says short track.
We've already seen a little bumping and banging, and the 18 of Kyle Busch had this to say on the radio.
It's real tedious to make up an inch. You get a lucky break through a corner if you can make up an inch, but otherwise you're on such an edge to just maintain.
That's why you have to do it on restarts. It's so important. You have everybody in one bunch on a restart. If you make good moves, you might can pick 2 or 3 spots up, Steve. So that's why everybody pushes so hard on restarts.
And that's why you see fenders getting pushed in, like we saw with the 78 and the 14 making contact, because you just can't be patient. If you've worked and got those few inches, you just can't give them back. You have to push the issue. Just like right here, we see the 88 and the 11 of Denny Hamlin Jr. racing and racing hard. They're going to continue to fight down into the corner because the 18 right behind him, he wants them to battle. The more they battle in front of them, the more he'll be able to take advantage.
I'm a little bit surprised by this, and I guess it's a good thing for Greg Ives, but Dale Earnhardt Jr., the radio we listened to on Friday and Saturday, did not have any faith, it seemed like, in that car. Didn't feel like that car was going to be worth the darn, and already he's worked his way back up into the top 5 as he just passed Denny Hamlin.
But that's New Hampshire. This track changes so much from Friday morning. The practice times are at very odd times of day. They're normally early in the morning. The track is cool. There's all kinds of rubber on the racetrack from other series. It's totally different than the race. Some drivers understand that and can remember the last time they were here. Some drivers, their patient level are a little too short in practice.
And on a bigger picture, here you have Jimmy Johnson in 4th, Dale Earnhardt Jr. in 5th. All we've heard about is Joe Gibbs racing, Joe Gibbs racing. Here's those 2 Hendrick cars. Now that the chase has started, they ran well last week, and they're running well again this week.
Yeah, we saw Casey Kane also show some strength early last week, as well as here at New Hampshire. Right now, Casey Kane running 18th.
Yeah, Jeff Gordonette wasn't running poorly. He wasn't happy with his car, but he was still running 12th. He pitted. He's all the way down in 21st. We won't know if that strategy worked or not until the next caution comes out. If the next caution comes out relatively quickly, maybe they can stay on the racetrack. They pick up all those spots. If this thing goes green for a long time, then that strategy may not have been the best thing. You just don't know until the next caution comes out.
Joe Gibbs Racing, where they're running, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th. Denny Hamlin trying to stay in front of that 18 of Kyle Busch. For some updates, we'll go to pit road. Marty Snyder.
Kevin Harvick out front leading the race. Rodney Childers asked him under that last caution, how was it? Harvick said, quote, really good. Took off very nicely on that run for Kevin Harvick. You know, I asked Rodney Childers earlier this week, was there talk in the shop about what happened at Chicago last week, especially post-race or with the poor 42nd place finish? He said, actually, no. We're a team that always tends to focus forward. And a good example of that was Tuesday at the race shop. Everybody showed up at 6 a.m. They worked until 8 p.m. that night. The entire Stewart-Haas Racing shop was empty, except for 14 guys surrounding one car, the 4 car. Rodney said it was a very cool moment, Dave.
The 2-car Brad Keselowski runs second, a little freer in and off this run. After he qualified 4th on Friday, he was quick to credit his crew chief, Paul Wolfe, for the setups. When I told Paul that this morning, he said, I don't know. I said, I credit the driver. No matter what configuration the car is in, no matter what the rules package, Brad runs well here because he takes care of the tires and he takes care of the brakes all day long. Kelly?
Jimmy Johnson is 7th in the chase with a 17-point cushion. When I talked to his crew chief, Chad Knaus, and asked him which of the chase tracks they needed the most work on, he said, it's probably here in New Hampshire. This is probably our weakest track. He said, we're off in the spring. We did some things that we probably shouldn't have, but he feels good about what they have here today. And said, in fact, he said the last 3 weeks we've really had fast cars, just haven't finished it off for whatever reason. He feels like it's a culmination of things they've learned over the summer. Right now, Jim is saying he's better in and off, although he could use help turning in the center, Mike.
Kurt Busch feels like he needs to roll the center better. That's his only complaint about the race car right now. But he, like so many others, had an interesting race in opening round here in Chicagoland. Afterwards, he was rather disappointed. It seemed like he was only about 10 laps away from victory. He and his crew chief, Tony Gibson, actually embraced for what seemed like 2 minutes. Tony Gibson told me today that conversation, while they embraced, was try to reinforce the positive. Get Kurt to look at the big picture. Not be disappointed in the fact that they lost the race, but be positive in the fact that they came away with a solid finish. That is, again, the goal today. Rick?
Thanks, Mike. A lot of different goals on the track. One goal for that driver is to have a lot better finish than he had a week ago at Chicagoland. Right now, he's out front. He's led 55 laps, but as you flash back to Chicagoland after the hole that they got into, Kevin Harvick is going to need a big finish and keep the momentum up that he's already built and have maybe a signature day here in New Hampshire. And the 0-2 Lions, Bob Costas, Dan Patrick host Football Night in America. Coverage begins 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific only on NBC. Kevin Harvick out front. Now he's led 61 laps and continuing to put cars a lap down. Jeff Burton will be the next one that could go a lap down. As we look at the points as they run for the chase grid, Kevin Harvick has moved his way up to 12th based upon points. But of course, if Kevin Harvick can continue on and win the race, that advances him right into round number 2 with the win. Win and you advance.
Wins fix everything, don't they?
And that's what Clint Bowyer would be hoping for right now. And he's at the bottom of that list, 35 points back. And Clint Bowyer, the slowest of the chase drivers, running 22nd now.
Yeah, but 25 of those points are due to the penalty that NASCAR's imposed on the 15 team. They do have an appeal this week, so we're just going to have to see the outcome of the appeal to see where that puts their points position. But I think that makes it hard for Clint Bowyer and this team. They have to understand, where are we at? We're 35 points down right now. If the appeal goes their way, that'll get 25 points back. But even that doesn't move them into the top 12. So, Mike, they have to be looking for some more speed out of this 15 car.
Yeah, and better handling, too, Steve. The car's been very loose, and Bowyer has said the front end feels like it's giving up on him a little bit. They've gone to work on it. But it's interesting, you talk about the penalty situation with his team. I had a little conversation with Billy Scott this morning, and he kind of looked at it 2 ways. He said, look, if we win the appeal, we're only, a few points back. We can play the points game here. But if we lose the appeal, it's almost like we're in a must-win situation. So he said he's kind of in an awkward position. He's not really sure exactly how to approach it, but he's certainly hoping to win the appeal, Kelly.
Paul Menard entered this race 14th in the chase, really needed a solid result here, but they knew that they were going to have a hard go of it Paul Menard said this is probably our worst track in the Chase. New Hampshire's always been a challenge for us. His crew chief, Justin Alexander, disagrees, though. He kind of left and said, well, this is probably our third worst. We have run here better than we finished for a variety of reasons. He said the car today, good on the short run, but they need to be better in the long run. It just gets tight in the center, which is exactly what Paul Menard is dealing with right now, Mike. Rick?
Yeah, and Kelly, you're exactly right. I mean, these guys, obviously, they need to find speed. They're the two slowest chasers right now. They're struggling. They're outside the top 12. They're in a hole right now. They've got to dig themselves out.
Yeah, Paul Menard and his team, the thing about these guys is they've kind of used the 31s approach. You can't really look at where they're running right now. You got to wait till the race is over, because this team often runs 15th, 18th, 19th, and then they claw out a 12. So they've done a really good job of using strategy. So I'm not as concerned about the 27 as I am the 15, Steve.
Well, the 15 is a concern. I understand where Billy Scott's coming from, that he's a little concerned about whether they will or won't have those 25 points. But if they continue to run outside the top 20, it's not going to matter. There's a reason these 16 teams make the chase. And if you look at current timing and scoring, 1st through 12th are chase drivers. McMurray and Gordon 17th and 18th, and then Menard and Boyer 21st and 22nd. The simple fact is, I know they want to win and they have to win, but they have to run well. They have to run in the top 5. This is one of Clint Boyer's best tracks, so to come here, they have to be disappointed running outside the top 20.
And we talked about it early in the race, or before the race even started. The goal here is to go to Dover in a position where you don't have to win. Go to Dover where you can have a reasonable finish and advance. The problem is these two guys are running 21st, 22nd. They're not good in points, and everybody is ahead of them. So you continue to lose points if you can't find a way forward later in the race.
Two other guys that are in that similar predicament are Jeff Gordon and Jamie McMurray, running 17th and 18th, Marty.
Rick, let's give a call to Jeff Gordon. We talked about that stop at lap 61 for Alan Gustafson and Jeff Gordon with the 2 tires. They took some wedge out to get that splitter off the ground. It worked. Gordon restarted 25th. He is now up to 17th. As you can see, Gordon talked about the speed they found lately. He said, honestly, I feel like we haven't lived up to our potential this year. Everybody wants to talk about a turnaround for the 24 team. I more call it us finally living up to our potential, Jeff Gordon, going forward since this restart, trying to get another spot. Jamie McMurray behind him, struggling a little bit more. I talked to McMurray this afternoon before he climbed in the car. He said, we have traditionally been very good here at New Hampshire. In fact, they have back-to-back top 5s in this chase race here at New Hampshire. He said, but this weekend, we have just missed it. We tried Kyle Larson's complete setup. That didn't really work. He did say on this run, I do feel like I'm a little bit quicker than I was the last run, but they are mired back in the 18th position right now and not making a whole lot of progress, Rick.
Yeah, Marty, frustrating. Even though we still haven't hit the 1/3 mark of this race, we still are under 100 laps completed. 91 have been completed. We're on lap 92. It's a fast race. We've already had 2 cautions. That's slowed the pace just a bit. But Kevin Harvick has set the standard. Kevin Harvick has a good car. He's had a good car all weekend. He has an almost 2-second lead over second place Brad Keselowski, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kurt Busch, the top 5. But with Harvick's car as dominant as it is early in this race, does that put a little bit more fear in these guys that are running poorly and need a good finish?
We saw how quickly it can change in the restarts at the end of Chicago. Well, it's great to lead laps, and the goal is to be where Kevin Harvick is. This is just a long story. We're only in about chapter 2 or 3. Points don't get paid. Points only get paid one time, Rick, the last lap. So even though Kevin Harvick is putting up a great pace, while it is exactly what they need to do, there's still 207 opportunities around this racetrack where it can go wrong.
That's right. Kyle Larson, the highest scored non-chaser right now.
Yeah, there's a whole group of cars here. We have Kyle Larson, and right behind him, Danica Patrick. We talk a lot about the chasers because it is the playoffs. They have worked to make the playoffs, but this is a car in the 42 that everybody had circled to win a race this year. This is a track he's run well at. Currently 13th. I know he wants to run higher than that, but he currently is the highest non-chaser, as well as Danica Patrick, right behind the 42, Jeff, competing ahead of 4 chase drivers.
Yeah, I think it's a good run for Danica Patrick and her team right now. Running in 14th, that's a good, solid run. She's running with a lot of good cars, done a good job on restart. So they need some momentum. They need something good to happen to them. They need a race. They just need to finish where they run. If they run 14th, they need to try to finish 14th. They've had a lot of races this year where they ran, say, 18th, 19th, 20th, but finished 30th. So they need something going right heading into next year.
Speaking of something going right going into next year, that's what this right here, the 5 team of Casey Kane, that's what they need. This is a team expecting to make the chase at the start of the year, miss the chase. They have to use these final 8 or 9 races to find what they need for this team moving forward into 2016. And another great run. Jeff Gordon just passed the 51 of Justin Allgaier, but up to 17th. There's a lot of rumor mill about H. Scott Racing and where this 51 may end up. I think Justin Allgaier is doing a great job in that car today.
4 non-chasers in the top 18. Jeff Gordon currently 16th. Harvick running up front. And by Ditech Home Loans. Low rates for home, buy, and refi. Top 12 positions presented by Sprint. All Chase drivers in the top 12. You can follow Miss Sprint Cup on Twitter now for a chance to win an autographed hat from today's Victory Lane. Kevin Harvick has now led 81 of the 102 laps complete as we've passed the third of this race, past the 100 lap marker. And Harvick continues to put cars a lap down. There are now 29 cars on the lead lap. The next car that he will put a lap down would be Sam Hornish Jr. Sam Hornish Jr. is about 28 seconds behind Kevin Harvick, who is clicking off laps at 29 seconds a lap. And the tire fall off, or the tire wearing out at a track like New Hampshire, we mentioned sometimes a harder tire doesn't fall off or wear out as quickly, so the lap times aren't falling off as dramatically as we see at some other tracks.
Yeah, and I think the biggest example of that is think about Jeff Gordon, where he pitted from 12th. He went all the way back to, I believe it was 25th. He went all the way back, and it's taking him this long to get back to 16th. So there's not a big advantage in having new tires. He's clawing his way back, but he's not doing it quickly by any means.
One of the interesting things is how these drivers will watch the lines of other drivers on the track to maybe figure out if there's a faster line around the track. We just listened in to Brad Keselowski. Here's what they had to say on the radio.
What was that last lap, Joe? 29.18, 28.80 in front. I mean, right now, I couldn't tell you any part of the track that we run different. I mean, maybe we run a little higher in the center 1 and 2, but not noticeable in 3 and 4.
Yeah, so that's Brad asking for lap times as he tries to look for things. He's trying to find a place to put his car. He's looking at Kevin Harvick in front of him, looking at his line. He's just trying things. The only way to really know when you're talking about, tenths of a second is get a lap time. You can feel the cars better, you can feel like it drove better, but actually went slower. So as you move around, your spotters give you lap times, and ultimately the faster the car is, that's no matter what it feels like, that's what you want to do.
And it's interesting because Brad Keselowski is really, there's 3 cars that are the class of the field with Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, and Jimmy Johnson. Harvick has put a 3-second gap between he and Keselowski, who's second. Well, Keselowski has about a 3 or 4 second gap between himself and third place Jimmy Johnson. And Keselowski is looking for a different line while he's running very competitive laps every time around this track.
Every team here is looking to optimize this run. Every single run. The key is to run every lap the fastest you can. So you've got to find your rhythm. You've got to find, as a driver, what works on corner entry into 1. How does that affect the exit of turn 2? Because what you do in the corner entry affects the middle of the corner, it affects the exit of the corner. So you've got to find the rhythm that makes your car go the fastest it can possibly go. As we can see, Keselowski is the fastest. As he's looking around, he's also finding lap time. So Harvick obviously was in lap traffic. He ran a 30.55, so obviously he was caught up in traffic.
But the different lines, Keselowski must be finding the right line, because that time he was the fastest lap. With Kevin Harvick continuing to work his way around the magic mile, trying to work his way into round 2 with a win at New Hampshire. Mobile, NASCAR's ultimate live race companion. Download it now. Follow your favorite driver here at the track. Search RaceView Mobile in iTunes, Google Play, or visit NASCAR.com/mobile for more information. Let's go through the field, brought to you by Sprint. Marty?
Well, Rick, should we be surprised that Kevin Harvick is out front? The last 5 times this 14 has finished 15th or worse. They've come back the next race to finish in the top 5. I asked Kevin why that was. He said, we're a team that focuses forward. We never look back. Right now, a lot out of the front windshield for Kevin Harvick. He said the car is very good. A little bit tight in the center. He needs a little more drive off on this next stop, Dave.
Marty, if he did look back, he'd see Brad Keselowski about 3 seconds behind. That gap is maintained. Paul Wolf told me this morning, we came to this weekend thinking we could find a little more short run speed in this car, and I got to say, we never really found it, but we're not bad. And as Rick pointed out earlier, that gap stays about the same. The two's in good shape, Kelly.
Jimmie Johnson running 30, turned 40 earlier this month, and to help celebrate, he completed his first century, a 100-mile bike race around the Charlotte area. Took over 5 hours, the last one in the rain. When I talked to him about it today, he said he was a bit sore afterward, but most of it just mentally challenging. Right now, Jimmie Johnson saying that he's better in and up, but could use a little help turning in the center. He's working that track car. Behind him is his teammate Dale Earnhardt Jr., who started 11th. That was their best qualifying effort in the last 5 races. As crew chief Greg Ives said, we just came with a different approach. We did something out of the box, but we need to see it work out more than once to know if we really hit on something. So Dover will be telling, but he said he definitely have more confidence and better communication with Dale. He said it was just a whole different mindset coming into this race, Marty.
Kelly, Jason Ratcliffe a few laps ago asked Matt Kenseth how the car was. He said, honestly, it's not bad. I just can't go anywhere. A little bit freer this run. And he said, I wouldn't change too much. They just told him a moment ago, we're about 11 laps from stop. So about lap 130 for Matt Kenseth to come to pit road, has made his way into the top 5, Mike.
And Kurt Busch is getting closer to making his stop on pit road as well, and he does need some adjustments. Says he needs to be a little bit tighter on entry. His crew chief, Tony Gibson, has told him to, well, we'll get back to that in a minute. We've got caution on the track.
Alex Bowman gets into the wall in turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, we got to go to the garage. We hit a ton. Throttle stuck.
And that brings the caution out. So instead of waiting until lap 130, everyone will be hitting pit road now. Bowman was running 30th. Already had been put a lap down. And straight to the garage, Alex will take the 7.
Thought I heard him say the throttle stuff. That's a horrible feeling as a driver. You drive in the corner, you lift, the thing just keeps going. Not a good feeling.
Turned into the garage stall that they had for practice. Most of the teams have already cleared out all of the equipment once the race starts. And so now with the caution coming out, Trevor Bayne was the highest non-lead lap car. That was a lap down, and he was running 27. Trevor Bayne will more than likely get the free pass.
So you're not going to get many freebies like this during the race in New Hampshire, but this is an easy one. You run long enough, everyone's run long enough, you come down, you put it full of fuel, get 4 tires on, really start thinking about your adjustments, because as we close in on halfway, you don't want to spend extra time on pit road after this stop. So if you have big adjustments to make, now's the time to make them.
And here they come, Marty.
Kevin Harvick said he got tight in the center and just wants more forward drive off the longer that run went. He also told Rodney Childers the track bar adjustment inside the car did not help that much. Quarter round in the right rear going in for wedge to loosen that car up just a little bit. Kelly?
Jimmie Johnson pits from the 3rd position. He's never won here at New Hampshire during the chase. He said he's a little bit free into 3, but overall the car is pretty good. It's going to be 4 tires for the 48 and his teammate Dale Jr. And the bottom left side on the long run, he needs to cut the center better, but good drive off and good balance. It's 4 tires and a track bar adjustment for the 88, Dave.
Lower right, Brad Keselowski got 4 tires. He was a 2-tire taker on the first run. He got a slight air pressure adjustment for the car that was a bit free at the end. He will remain in 2nd behind Harvick, Rick.
Thank you, Dave. A 2-tire taker. Not easy to say. Flow it off the tongue there of Dave Burns. We see the race off pit road. A couple spots advanced by Logano. Look back at Alex Bowman. Hard right turn. And into the wall, the 7 went. He's in the garage now. We're under caution. Harvick, after the pit stops, back out front. He has led over 1,000 laps since his last win earlier this year in Phoenix, but hasn't had wins. He's had 8 second-place finishes over that span of time. We'll see if he can close the deal here in this, the 2nd race of the chase, as they get ready to enter the NBC restart zone. We're back underway. Kevin Harvick on the outside, Brad Keselowski on the inside. They fan out 3 wide as they go into turn 1. Once again, Kyle Busch all the way down to the apron in the 18.
Kyle Busch just hung a left at the end of the front stretch and went around Joey Logano. Joey thought he was at the bottom of the racetrack because he was, because Kyle Busch decided to use the apron.
Dale Jr. early in the race tried to push the 48 below that white line. He's not able to do it to the two of the Keselowski. Keselowski just ran up the racetrack and took that line away from him.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. running third. Matt Kenseth fourth. Jimmy Johnson rounding out the top 5. And here comes Kyle Busch on the outside. 3 wide down the back stretch as they get ready to go into turn 3. Denny Hamlin on the inside of that 48. Hamlin moving back up to the front, and the 48 with a big bobble there. Now he's 3 wide on the outside as they enter the front stretch.
And right in front of them is Kyle Busch. We talked about how important restarts are. Well, Kyle restarted 9th. He's already up to 6th, gained 3 spots. That might not seem like much, but look what his other option was. Right here in the mess between the 48, 22, and 19.
I think Kyle Busch, more than anybody on the racetrack, looks at the restarts as an opportunity to gain spots. He's willing to take gambles and risk, put himself in jeopardy to try to gain spots because he knows how hard it is once you get single file. So Kyle Busch is always, in my opinion, the most aggressive guy on restarts. Second would be Ryan Newman.
Carl Edwards, pole winner, trying to get by the 22 of Joey Logano, not able to make that pass. Dave?
And Ricky wants to get back up front. Remember, he started on the pole, as you mentioned, and he was 5th after he took 4 tires when others were 2 tire takers, as we talked about. He lost more track position when the car got a little bit tight through the 2/3 part of the corner, so they made a right rear air pressure adjustment this time to try to make that happen and get Carl back up front.
I mentioned this race goes fast. We're approximately 20 laps away from the halfway point of this race already. Harvick has a 1.4-second lead over Brad Keselowski. Joey Logano just in front of Carl Edwards, Keselowski's teammate. Top 12 still chase runners. Newman running 12th. Casey Kane and Danica Patrick 13th and 14th. Restart's always critical.
We talked about Kyle Busch being very aggressive on the restart. We saw how aggressive he was. The rule is when you get to the start-finish line, you can change lanes to advance your position. He had a good run on the 22, turned left. He's not done there. He was all the way to the bottom of the racetrack, all 4 tires below the yellow line, cleared everybody. Now he's going to get next to the 11. So that's a great example of how you have to be aggressive on the restarts, but it started early. It started way before they got to the corner.
Yeah, luckily the pit road wall ends where it does because he takes a hard left right there, just misses pit road, almost hits the cone for pit out. But what he does a great job of is right there. Stops the car, gets it turned, and that gives him that acceleration to stay underneath the 11.
Sounded like he shifted.
He did shift. That meant that he went through. You're very astute, Rick. He went through 1 and 2 in 3rd gear. He just kept it in 3rd gear and didn't go to 4th until the back straightaway. So that was a good pickup, Rick.
Biggest movers since the restart. Busch, Larson, and Dillon all have advanced 4 positions. Kyle Busch now lost a spot to Denny Hamlin.
We're going to make a student out of him yet.
Osmosis. I just keep hanging out with you guys. I'll get it.
Sorry.
Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Dale Earnhardt Jr. They are the top 3. Kenseth, Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin. Surprisingly, we mentioned the stat about Kevin Harvick and leading over 1,000 laps since his last win, as we see the 55. David Reagan, unscheduled pit stop here for Reagan as he's on pit road. About 11 laps since we were last on pit road. Kevin Harvick, after leading over 1,000 laps since his last win, he's in a situation that behind him, the drivers 2nd to 11th have all won a race since Harvick won his last race. So he's got a lot of hungry drivers behind him. Brad Keselowski just in front of the 88 of Dale Earnhardt Jr.
I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of the 88 today. He's been good on restarts, good on long runs. This is what this team needs. I mean, we haven't seen a tremendous amount of speed from the 88 or really any of the Hendrick cars, as we spoke about earlier, but it's the kind of run that these guys need. They need a little bit of confidence. They need to feel like, you know what, we came here, we had a chance to win, And again, we're getting into the meat of the season. We're getting into the part of the season where you can win a championship or you can lose a championship. You need to be your best right now, and that's what I'm seeing from the 88. They're stepping up as the chase has started.
Denny Hamlin gets by Kurt Busch, and he will take that spot away and move up into the top 5. Kelly.
Of course, Denny Hamlin with that win last week is the only driver through to the next round of the chase. And when I asked his crew chief, Dave Rogers, what that was like, he said, you know, on the way here, it almost felt unfair. So many guys are busy sweating it out. But that went out the window as soon as they got to the track and went back to work. So he said, the plane right here was all smiles, but now we're back to business. And then Denny said, yeah, you can't forget, in a week and a day from now, as soon as Dover is over, we're going to have the stress all back on us again. Well, I can tell you that early in this race, Denny was really struggling with the exit on his car, and the team noticed a little bit of damage on the right rear. He thinks it's from contact with the 88, Dave.
Joey Logano finished 6th last week at Chicagoland. Crew Chief Todd Gordon told me this morning that based on that, what they need to do here today is a base hit in baseball terms. Don't overdo what they need to do. Just execute what they can do. So far, it's been kind of like that, especially losing a couple of positions on the restart, Marty.
Well, David, Chicago, Martin Truex Jr. was in the perfect position at the end of the race. 4th with 2 fresh tires. A lot of people thought he was going to win that race, but the restart sent him all the way back to a poor finish and in danger of not making it to the next round. They have struggled this weekend as well with this setup on the 78 car, but they're slowly making it better. Truex now up into the 12th position. Car getting a little bit better. Cole Pearn told me they're worried about this section of the chase. These first 2 races, if they make it through, they feel like they can be champions, Mike.
And Marty, one of the great stories of the 2014 chase was certainly Ryan Newman. Despite not ever winning a race, he came within 1 position of winning the championship. I talked with his crew chief, Luke Lambert, and asked him if they could follow that same script this year. He said, yeah, we could, but we'd rather not. He wants to win. Right now, Ryan Newman saying he doesn't necessarily have a winning car, needs to work on it, and they may have a problem developing. He thinks he might have a vibration, Rick.
That's a great point. Since the last win for Ryan Newman, it's been over 2 years, but he's so close to winning a championship a year ago. He was chasing after a Roku streaming player. The more weeks you play, the more chances you have for the grand prize. Quicken Loans will pay your mortgage for a year. Kevin Harvick has led 123 of the 145 laps now. That is definitely a dominant car today. Jeff Gordon is trying to bounce back from maybe a little bit of strategy that was played early on.
Strategy and adjustments. Marty reported earlier, we were talking about pushing a spring rubber in, maybe pulling one out of the left rear, and you see here as he tries to pass the 10, and Danica Patrick gets a little bit into her left rear, moves her up, and goes on by. And, you know, with 154 to go, you hate to get into people and move them around, but Jeff, you and I have been talking, that 24's made some good adjustments, currently 14th, but running some good lap times.
He's running some good lap times. The problem he's got is there's only 3 guys behind him that are in the chase. So even though he's running well, and he's running 14th, that's not horrible. He's still got to find his way forward because everybody in front of him are the people that he's racing to get himself into the top 12 going into the next round.
Marty.
And guys, you talk about all those adjustments, Steve, you were talking about it. He is still tight for Jeff Gordon. They put a spring rubber in the right rear and took one out of the left rear this last time. So they have been trying to get that 24 car better, and they've been getting it better. I think the frustrating part for Jeff is for Jeff Gordon, Jeff Burton, is the fact that he's passing the same people over and over again. He came in 15th this last time, came out 19th because of those adjustments here on pit road. When you pass the same people run after run, it gets a little frustrating behind the wheel, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, but that's better than them passing you. I can tell you that. But ultimately, I thought it wasn't a good call to pit when they pitted because they gave up so many spots, and they still haven't gotten back. They're still to 14th, but they felt like they did what they had to do to get the car driving well. And the car is fast. I mean, they have made the right adjustments. They have had to do they have done the things they needed to do to get the car to drive well. So he just needs a little bit of track position. I think he gets it. He can compete with the front runners.
Mike Massaro.
Well, Rick, one of the bigger stories here this week revolving around the Chasers has to do with the 41 car. not necessarily the performance on the racetrack, but what happened off of it. This week, Tony Gibson was hospitalized briefly for an emergency appendectomy. I spoke with him this morning, and he says he's doing much better. He also pointed out a potential silver lining that came from that. He said while he was gone, because he wasn't in the shop most of the week, he said his two engineers, John Klossmeyer and Mike Cook, they stepped up in his absence. They took over control of what needed to be done before they got to the racetrack. He said that helped groom them a little bit for their potential future career as crew chiefs. He thought that that was a great idea because it's helping him build depth in this race team, and he also knows it's important when team members step up in the middle of the playoffs.
And you have to. I mean, everyone has to raise their level when we get to this part of the season. This is the playoffs. There are only 10 opportunities. When the playoffs start, there are 10 opportunities to shine. And ultimately, you've got to do it in 3 race segments. You've got to have great races the first 3 races if you want to still have a chance in advance to round 2.
And race teams are a lot like football teams. You're going to hear the quarterback's name a lot, just like the driver Jimmy Johnson or Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Denny Hamlin, who are battling here on the racetrack. But there are so many people top to bottom within the organization that make these cars successful. Engineers, mechanics, pit crew people, even back at the shop, the fabricators who build the race cars. It truly takes a full organization to be successful.
And when you're a crew chief, comes to the racetrack after having emergency surgery, he's here a few days later, he's not going to listen to you when you say I'm tired. He's not going to listen to you and say my ankles hurt a little bit. That's leading by example. Hey, listen, I'm here, I'm doing it. Guess what? Everybody else can too.
We saw Denny Hamlin get by Dale Earnhardt Jr. for the 4th spot. So Denny Hamlin, even though he already has a win and is going to advance into the second round, he's still pushing very hard as he works toward the front, trying to get a little bit closer to Brad Keselowski, who was just talking moments ago about the handling of his number 2 machine.
The biggest thing I see here, Paul, is that main brake, like right where I let off the brake, the car doesn't turn. And it's got us doing other things to try to get it to turn that are making me freeze. It's right when I let off the brake. Well, getting beat the most.
Driver, what'd you hear there?
Well, that's just really good feedback, and what he's saying is that he just needs to rotate, and anything they've done to make his car turn better has hurt his rear grip. And so they haven't found a way to make just the front end work without having to sacrifice somewhere else. And that's the hard part about this racetrack. These corners are really long. They last forever. They're flat. And when the car doesn't turn as good as you want it to, it's hard to get the speed through the middle of the corner that you need.
I mean, this is one of those tracks I always had in my notes. Understand the order of operations. And I know that seems very silly, but entry, the most important thing. If the driver can't get into the corner the way he wants to get into the corner, you're always going to be tight in the middle. Then you seems to always be free off. So instead of trying to fix the free off, we always had more success by turning the middle, letting the driver get it straighter off. But you have to have this feedback from your driver to let you know if you are going the right direction. If not, you're just guessing, and guessing really gets you nowhere.
Even though Kevin Harvick is out front, the fastest lap turn last time by, Denny Hamlin. He must be the man on the move as he gets closer to that top spot. Garage. They will have to go and do a lot of work to the right side of this car, especially the suspension on the right front. The right front wheel locked up as he went into the garage. Take a look.
Obviously, he's got, most likely there's a right front tire down. Don't know if he ran over something or possibly melted a bead. A lot of braking you can use here. You can actually melt the inside edge of the tire. So not sure which it was, but certainly it looks like to me a tire going down. Yep, there. So
yeah, you can see the hood pop when the tire went down.
Kyle Busch won here in July. Now he's behind the wall, the first chaser with an issue at New Hampshire. Marty?
And guys, Matt Kenseth has the very first stall on pit road. He said the track has taken a big swing. He's top left-hand side of your screen. A little too tight in the center for Matt Kenseth. He'll do 4 tires. Kevin Harvick, the leader, just took 2 tires on that stop. Kelly?
Hamlin in the 11 car, your lower left there, said it fired off way better that time, but he could use more center turn. He's been adjusting the track bar. You see he's going to get 4 Goodyear tires, Dave.
Sunoco field for Brad Keselowski, blocked in as he left. He took 2 tires to try to speed up his pit stop and get track position, but there was another car coming by he had to slow down for.
Look at the race off pit road. Harvick holds that top position. Carl Edwards advancing 7 spots with a 2-tire stop. But the big story, Kyle Busch into the wall, now in the garage.
as a result of a crash involving the 18 car of Kyle Busch. You can see the work going on in the garage. Here's what transpired on the racetrack. It appeared a right front tire went down, perhaps a melted bead, but he ended up in the wall and sustained some heavy damage to the right side of that race car. In the garage, the team, it seems, all hands on deck trying to repair this machine. Lots of sheet metal damage, and in fact, when the car came in, the right front brake rotor was literally on fire. They've got a lot of work to do down here to get the 18 back on the track, Rick.
Speaking of a lot of work that needs to be done, Carl Edwards, pit road penalty, removing equipment from the box. That puts him at the end of the longest line for this restart. And as the pace car makes its way back on pit road, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, you see their speeds as they enter the NBC Sports restart zone. 2 by 2 heading into turn 1. Outside line has worked on the restarts for Kevin Harvick. Three wide as they come out of 3 and 4. There's a gas can that was removed from the 19's pit stall. That's why that penalty was assessed. 3 wide going into turn 1. Jeff Gordon right in the middle. And once again, Gordon in the middle of 3 wide. Justin Allgaier in the 51. Almost been a little bit of a thorn in his side today.
But this is what we talk about. Jeff Gordon's in the chase. Justin Allgaier isn't. But Justin Allgaier has every right to race this racetrack, as do the playoffs guys. That's what's different. What's different about the playoffs is it's not just the chase cars on the racetrack.
Here comes 2 chasers working their way around the mile here for position. Dale Earnhardt Jr. strong today. Gets by Martin Truex Jr. Jimmy Johnson tucks in behind that 78.
78 of Martin Truex. They did 2 tires to gain a little bit of track position. So he's on 2. Everybody around him is on 4.
Kevin Harvick out front. Brad Keselowski. Matt Kenseth has worked his way into a top 3 position. Kurt Busch running 4th. Dale Earnhardt Jr. back up to 5th. Martin Truex Jr., Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, and Casey Kane rounding out the top 10. Now Jimmy Johnson looking at the inside of that 78. Johnson will try to take 6th away from Martin Truex Jr. The lower line prevails. He takes the spot. Here comes Hamlin. 2 tires not working out for Martin Truex Jr. this time. Joey Logano next in line to try to get by Martin Truex Jr. as he continues to fall back.
So Truex, when he pitted, he was running 11th. So the goal here is to try to pick up some spots, obviously. But worst case scenario, don't fall any further back than 11th. Because they pitted in 11th, came out in 4th by putting those 2 tires on versus 4. Just don't get any further back than 11th, and you would have gained by doing this.
And the other strategy and adjustments that were made to a car that we have to look in a similar situation was Jeff Gordon, who pitted when he was running 12th, made some adjustments to that car. They fell back outside the top 20. Now he's worked his way back up to 16th. So still, it's been a loss with the adjustments that they've had to make.
But that's what happens. We talk about the decisions these crew chiefs make, and we forget about them. This is a decision that was made over 100 laps ago, and they're still behind because of it. It's quicksand. You kind of start, the more you struggle, the deeper you go. Just like Carl Edwards in the 19 team. They had removing equipment on the last pit stop, had to go to the tail end of the field. That penalty is going to be very hard to dig out of. If we look on the pit stop, they only take right side tires. But as they go to drop the jack, you see at the back of the car, the gas man, he's trying to stay plugged in as long as he can. He's trying to get as much fuel in the race car as possible. When Carl Edwards leaves, it catches the dump can, it goes over the white line. That's a penalty. But the compound penalties and mistakes, after they were told they had a penalty, the 19 went to the tail of the field. But, Jeff, they didn't come back in to get left side tires. You're already starting left. I think it was just a mental mistake. Let emotion take part. They didn't come down and take left side tires. There was no harm in it. They should have completed the 4-tire change.
And Joey Logano now trying to get by that 78 of Martin Truex Jr. For more on the 19, Dave Burns.
Rick, I asked his crew chief Darian Grubb this morning what Carl needed to do today since he finished second last week. It's not a must win. He said we must finish top 10. Well, they had to restart 26th, so there is some work to do there. And Steve, isn't it interesting? The whole can didn't have to leave. It was kind of like an out of bounds in football versus soccer. Just a little part of the can left the box, and that was enough.
That's all it takes. You own your pit box, but outside that pit box, NASCAR owns. You can have none of your equipment leave the pit. And that's really for a safety reason more than anything. Why is that a penalty? Because we can't have air guns, dump cans, parts of pit equipment leaving the pit box. Another car could hit it. It could hit another crew member. It's really a black and white call. Unfortunately, it didn't take but half the dump can to penalize the 19.
Yeah, if a wedge wrench stays in the rear window of a car, goes out on the racetrack, that's potential danger for everyone around this track. So they don't want any equipment ever leaving the box, and that's the reason for the penalty. As we continue to watch that 78 of Martin Truex Jr. just fall back further and further.
He's battling. He's fighting hard, Jeff, but it's just the fresher left side tires in these cars that are catching him. The 5 at Casey Kane. You see how much better it turns on the exit of the corner. He's able to get the power down. Now he has position on the 78 entering turn 1.
He's still in ninth position, though, so right now the gamble is worth it. Again, if he falls back past 11th, then you have to consider that it wasn't worth it.
Casey Kane running 10th, trying to take that 9th spot away. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. just behind him, just outside the top. Toyota driver update. Matt Kenseth running the best of the Toyota drivers in 3rd. Denny Hamlin 7th. Carl Edwards with an issue on pit road. He's now running 25th. Kyle Busch running 40th now after hitting the wall, and they are in the garage continuing to work on the 18. How does that affect the chase grid? We look at the 16 drivers as they run. Denny Hamlin with the win will be up top. Kevin Harvick right now hovering right around the cut line in 12th, but of course if he wins he goes up, and that adjusts everything down to where Jeff Gordon would then drop down into 12th. But you see Clint Boyer down there 28 points below the cut line. Kyle Busch already 4 points below the cut line because of the issue he had on the track today.
This is why this is so stressful to the teams. I mean, Kyle Busch and his team, they're having a good day. They're not doing anything wrong. They're not running great, but they're running well, have a good chance to get a good finish. In a matter of a second, your entire season can change, and that's what all these teams are dealing with. They know it. Kevin Harvick has dominated this race, but the race isn't over. There's a lot of racing left to go. Anything can happen. He can go from, hey, it looks like a sure win, to being completely out of the playoffs.
Kevin Harvick has already locked up the point for most laps led. He's at 161 laps led. Nobody can beat him for that honor because there's only 116 laps to go. Brad Keselowski, Matt Kenseth, Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson. They are the top 5 behind Harvick. And Denny Hamlin has taken that spot away from Jimmy Johnson, that top 5 spot. Battle for 5th tight between the 3. Hamlin, Johnson, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Racetrack seems to be changing. Does the track bar adjustment inside the car that these drivers have, does that help them when a track starts to change? And in a run, can that help them with the handling of their car enough that it doesn't have them falling completely back and out of contention?
Well, the problem you have is everyone has that adjustment. So it's not an advantage over your competitors. It's you have the adjustment just like everyone else. So it really depends. As you see here, great battle between teammates here. This is a tough part about the chase. You have to race each other, yet stay off from each other. You don't want to bang fenders as teammates, possibly leaving one of them with a flat tire. But what that track bar adjuster does, Rick, is if your setup allows the track bar to really adjust the balance, then it can help. But we've heard a couple times today, drivers report to their crew chiefs that I moved the track bar, it hasn't helped. Try something else. So their setup doesn't allow the track bar to be a big help.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. moved past Jimmy Johnson. That was for 6th. Denny Hamlin has 5th, just in front of the 88s. As they work past the 23 of Jeb Burton. We want to go through the field once again, and we'll start with Marty Snyder.
Well, Rick, it's been a stunning pace that Kevin Harvick has set today. He's led all but 23 laps. And as you just mentioned, already locked up the bonus point for leading the most laps today. Speaking of the number 23, you know, it's been 23 races, believe it or not, since Kevin Harvick and this team were in victory lane. That was Phoenix in March. 10 second place finishes this year. They would love to change all that and get win number 3 in the column today, Dave.
Brad Keselowski, in the last 8 races here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway in the Sprint Cup Series, has been incredible. An average finish of 4.75. And he's clearly the second best car on track today if they can just keep it under him. If anything happens to Kevin Harvick, the 2 is there. It's been a good run so far, Marty.
Dave, with the success of JGR coming into the chase, Matt Kenseth said, you know, it's easy to stick with what's worked so far, but we saw those Chevys bring a lot of speed, just like Kevin Harvick has today, to Chicago last week. So we always have to be developing at Joe Gibbs Racing. They did that today with a setup for Kenseth. They were not good in practice yesterday, but they have made this car not only better for the start of the race, but better throughout the race. They're in third, Mike.
Marty, Tony Gibson told his team earlier this week he does not want them to look ahead. Do not even look at Dover. Just concentrate on what's going on in New Hampshire and get max points. So far, Kurt Busch biding his time. The car has not been perfect. He's been near the front, but can't quite get there yet because the car has been loose. They adjusted the ride heights on the last time down pit road. The car's been a little bit better, but he still can't make his way to the front. Kelly?
With Denny Hamlin's spot in the next round of the chase secure, his crew chief, Dave Rogers, said we would absolutely do something dramatic to go for the win. If we're in position, we've got a caution out.
Cautions come out, and we're hearing debris in turns 3 and 4. That coming from NASCAR. 191 laps complete.
Now it's really all about nobody can make enough fuel from here, Rick, but you still have to be thinking about that. What do you do now to put yourself in position? Do you take right side tires here and then dare take right side tires again? We just saw the 7-8 of Martin Truex gamble with right side tires. He stayed 10th. Much like you were saying, Jeff, the gamble didn't have a big win, but it wasn't a loss.
And it goes back to that pit stop where the 4, he put on right side tires. We saw the 2 put on right side tires. Everybody else put on 4. Now, do they have to put on 4 and everybody else put on 2? We're getting ready to find out.
That's the question. While the 78 didn't lose spots, now he's sitting here. That's a spring rubber. That's hopefully not what you wanted to help your car turn, because it's not in it anymore if that was your spring rubber. But now the 78 is really staring 4 tires in the face. He almost has to take 4 tires. I think this is going to hurt, because I think there are going to be teams that take right side tires here. I think maybe the majority are going to take right side tires. That's going to hurt the 78's track position.
Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Matt Kenseth, Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin. The top 5, they all in line as they duck onto pit road and head your way, Marty.
Well, Matt Kenseth has that very first stall on pit road. Again, the car just a little bit too tight for Kenseth. They're going to make a wedge adjustment here. Also an air pressure adjustment for Matt Kenseth. Actually, they're just going to make it an air pressure adjustment. That's it. 2 tires. But as you predicted for Kevin Harvick, the leader, it will be a 4-tire stop, half a round out of the right rear. Mike?
Kurt Busch's team has gone to work on the chassis several times today. Not this time, however, just 4 tires, air pressure, and fuel, Dave.
Well, pretty well balanced for 2 tires, said Brad Keselowski. He'll get 4 this time with a little adjustment.
6 cars making it out in front of Kevin Harvick, who was the race leader. Lost 6 spots. Matt Kenseth wins the race. Pit road. It took for the team to put the 18 back together and get him back out on the racetrack. Now I want to do the McDonald's Who Are You Loving? As we ask our experts up here.
I like Kevin Harvick. I think Kevin Harvick has been a dominant car today. But the interesting thing here, Jeff, took 4 tires. I'm liking that situation. That gives him the opportunity to take 2 tires on the next pit stop. I think Ronnie Childers already thinking ahead.
Yeah, I'm nervous about it because I think the guys in front of him, when they come back, they could take 2 again also. It's all going to depend on what kind of restarts Kevin Harvick can get.
And now out front, Matt Kenseth shows the outside line. Green flag back in the air. We're back underway. Closing in on 200 laps complete. Lap 197, way down to the bottom of the track, and on the apron was the 4 of Kevin Harvick.
That's a new groove. I've seen low, but that's a new low. That's unbelievable. All the way down to the grass. Now Martin Truex is going to have that option as they go 3 wide into turns 3.
Very congested through 3 and 4.
So you talk about 2 tires versus 4 tires. The two guys that have 4 tires are the 2 car and the 4 car. So the race for this win could be happening right now. If the 2 can stay in front of the 4 and then everybody else comes in, these guys are able to take 2. If everybody else has to take 4 later, then the 2 could have track position on the 4.
That's absolutely right, Jeff. You have to understand who you're racing. When it comes to 103 to go, the crew chief has to tell the driver, who must you get in front of? Who are we racing that's on our strategy?
Tony Stewart falling back, did some pit strategy to get up into the top 10, running 8th now. Trying to hold on to a top 10 position. Kenseth, Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, the top 5.
The other concern I have about having to pit or losing that track position is you've led the race all day. You have no idea how your car drives behind other cars. This is the first time, really, with the exception of his first 30 or 40 laps, where Kevin Harvick's had to pass cars from behind. So this is the first time he's been in that situation.
Well, as I look at the lap times, it looks like it's
48, smoke coming out the back. Left front tire looks to be down. So Jimmy Johnson looks to have cut a left front tire.
The problem with this, unless a bunch of debris comes off that left front tire, there'll be no caution for this.
You hear him saying, it's flat, take care of it. He was 3rd. Another chaser with issues.
Left side, tire jack, left side. Get ready to pick the car up.
You heard Chad, get ready to pick the car up. There's no interliners here. They're going to have to get the car lifted up to get the jack underneath it. That's going to be the biggest concern, is this has to be an efficient stop.
Coming in with only 3 tires up.
Back it down, back it down, back it down.
Kelly, they're in front of you.
And they took 2 tires last time around. Chad Knaus so positive, so high on his pit crew. It was a left front flap for Jimmy Johnson. He saw the smoke straight away and radioed it back to Chad Knaus, who immediately told him, of course, to bring it in to pit lane. A pretty quick stop there to get those fresh tires on the left side there.
And Jimmy Johnson making his way off of pit road and back out onto the racetrack. He was able to stay on the lead lap when they crossed the start-finish line, but now Jimmy Johnson falling a lap down as Matt Kenseth was able to get by him.
Well, Jimmy's goal right now is to get all the way back as far as he can to be the first car 1 lap down, so that if the caution does come out, he will get the free pass. So that's Jimmy's race right now. He has to focus on that.
27 points, Rick. 27 points. 3rd to 30th. In the last 60 seconds, Jimmy Johnson's lost 27 points in the chase.
That's how quickly it can happen. As we mentioned at the very top of the show, things happen quick. Matt Kenseth, race leader. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Brad Keselowski. Kevin Harvick has worked his way up to 4th now on that 4-tire stop.
And when we talk about cars that handle good and will they handle in traffic, on the last restart, Kevin.
Oh, into the wall goes the 10. And 10 is hit as well as she was coming back down the track. Danica Patrick. Looked as though the 55 of David Reagan made contact with Danica as she was coming down the track. She gets the car refired. Looks like she's going to try to drive it back.
All that blue foam you see on the racetrack there was probably out of the door at the 55. Probably peeled his door open, probably the right side, but looking at the 55, that's the energy absorbent foam that's in the door between the sheet metal and the chassis. Window net's down on the 55. That's always a good sign.
But you see the right side of that car is completely torn off.
And Danica was having a good day today. She was running 12th. Had run well all day long. So once again, they don't get the finish they were looking for.
Yeah, Danica was running 12th. The 55 was running 22nd.
Danica on the outside of Newman.
And around she goes. Didn't look like there was contact there, but could have been earlier.
I have to believe there was contact the way she turned around quickly. Here comes David Ray. Nowhere to go. He did nothing wrong. Yeah, with a 3 wide, it was
right here. I think is the best shot. You have the 31 underneath the 10. The 31 just moves up. I didn't know if the 24 get into the 31, but at that view, it seemed clear to me that there was no contact. Jeff was just turning underneath the 31. The 31 got in the corner deep.
Yeah.
In between
Definitely
the
contact.
31 and the 10, there was definitely contact. Whether the 31 came up or the 10 was coming down, that's what makes this corner so difficult, Jeff, because what's the line? You can't follow the dotted line. What's the natural line of the cars into the corner?
Yeah, Danica was expecting Ryan Newman to go all the way down to like the left, put the left sides closer to the yellow line. She was protecting that spot, trying to, arc in the corner, and just Ryan Newman thought, hey, you're not coming down that far. So Ryan Newman didn't do that on purpose, but ultimately it looked like Ryan did not give her the room that she was expecting.
Now they've stopped the field on the backstretch. We've gone to a red flag condition. A lot of cleanup is going to have to take place in turns 1 and 2, all the foam that came out of the cars. As a driver, Jeff, when Danica Patrick initially hits the wall and then comes back down the racetrack and the car stops, do you kind of loosen up a little bit and you're not expecting that second hit to happen, are you?
No, I think I always was. I was always, until everybody went by me, I was always expecting to get hit again. It's kind of the fear you have of being sitting in the middle of the racetrack and somebody T-boning you. That's one of the biggest fears a driver has. So, yeah, I think you stay, and your belts are so tight. Really, whether you're relaxed or not really doesn't matter. About the only thing you can do is hold on to the wheel, kind of get your head up against all the head supports so that if you do get hit, your head doesn't move a great deal. But other than that, the safety system inside the car should do the majority of the work.
You see all the crew members looking at the car. They can't work on it under a red flag condition. They might actually do it, though, because the penalty of it is not going to hurt them that much if they want to start working on this car. But anyone else involved in it or wanting to have any work done to their car can't work on the car under a red flag condition. So the 10 has made its way into the garage. Danica Patrick will climb out of that car. Big hits between David Reagan and Danica Patrick after Patrick was up into the outside wall. We're under a red flag condition in New Hampshire. Condition after Danica Patrick got into the wall in turns 1 and 2, and then contact made between the 10 and the 55. David Reagan trying to avoid the 10 got into Danica Patrick and tore the right side off of that car. Danica Patrick, as she was getting out of the car, we heard some radio communication between her and the team. This is what she had to say on the radio.
31 just totally took me out. I get it. I mean, I get that he was working hard to pass me, but it's not like it was first 10 laps of the race.
You can see Danica, she's expecting Ryan to be where the 24 was, to be quite honest. She was expecting Ryan to be lower than he was. And as you said, Steve, these entries they're wide. You try to get the guy that's underneath you to be as low as he can, but Danica she thought Ryan was going to give him more room. To be honest with you, I don't know who was wrong or who was right there. I mean, it's just one of those things that I know Ryan Newman didn't do that on purpose. I know he thought he was where he needed to be, and she thought she was where she needed to be. So sometimes wrecks happen.
Well, the question mark I have is, does Ryan Newman think does he think he has room to his left? Does he think Jeff Gordon is there? Does he, because Jeff Gordon is right to the 31's bumper. Does he think he's giving the 10 enough room? It's a judgment call. That's short track racing. I mean, that unfortunately is the how quick it can happen.
One other thing, I mean, David Reagan trying to take the lowest line down. Is that a situation? Should Danica Patrick have locked the tires up there? I mean,
well, she could have had the tires. She hit the wall. It could have broken the brake caliper, and
sure.
Could have had a problem where she doesn't have any brakes. So, whenever you hit that hard, things get broken, and sometimes the cars don't have brakes.
I hate this, though, guys, right here. Now, you see these cars rolling. What they're doing, the 22 as he rolls, the 11. The crew chiefs are telling these drivers. So we've been running. We've run on 204 laps at a high braking track. The brakes are extremely hot. What they're going to tell their drivers to do is, as they sit back here, now the pace car's starting to roll off, but continue to let your car roll a little bit at the time. Don't let the pads sit against the rotors, the brake discs. This is a concern. This was always a concern of mine. When you have a red flag at a braking track, everything cools down. We talk about that brake vibration at Richmond. This is another track that you can get it. And after cooling, it can be a bad problem.
It was just 6 minutes that we were under red flag condition as cars rolling once again. The track cleaned in turns 1 and 2. So the opportunity for the teams to make their way onto pit road won't happen this time, as pit road is still closed.
My stomach is in knots for him, Rick, because as we mentioned earlier, the fuel window is around 83 to 88 laps. Well, here we sit at 96 laps to go. Next time by will be 95 laps to go. I don't know what it is about Loudon, why we always have to have a caution at around 90 or 95 laps, because now it's easy to say you're going to be aggressive. It's easy to say you're going to go for the wins. How much are you going to go for those? Are you willing to stretch the fuel? Because if you run out of gas, as we've seen a ton of people here do before, Jimmy Johnson just lost 27 points with a flat tire. If you run out of gas, that could cost you 20 points.
And just out of the infield care center is David Reagan. He's standing by with Mike.
And Rick, he's okay, thankfully, but certainly a heavy hit. Didn't look like he could avoid it. What happened?
Yeah, that was a hard hit. You know, thankful to all the NASCAR safety initiatives over the years. Everything's good to go. But, you know, we'd had kind of a rocky day in our Aaron's Toyota. Had an unscheduled pit stop earlier, a loose wheel, got the lucky dog, and felt like we'd just kind of gotten back in rhythm. And I saw the 10-car wreck, and I was just hoping, and I thought that she would hold on to her brakes and maybe not come back down the track as quick and as violent as she did. And I guess if I wouldn't have hit her, she would have probably hit the inside wall. But all in all, yeah, I'm good to go, and I wish she would have just held on to the brakes.
Rick, pit road's open.
Pit road is open. Who are we going to see?
Rick, what's
Everybody?
tough about this, if you're Carl Edwards running 14th, Stenhouse running 15th, from there on back, why not pit? There's no loss in pitting, but that could force the hand for the people in front of them what happens later in this race. Matt
Kenseth goes by pit road. And quite a few more on the lead lap also going by the entrance to pit road. And it looks as though we'll go all the way back to the 27 of Paul Menard before anyone hops onto pit road. He was running 18th. So they'll take some attention from their crew, and we'll be back for the restart. Foods. Biggest chase mover presented by Sprint is Clint Boyer. He currently scored in the 10th position, has moved up 16 spots. Stop in at Sprint, cut your rate plan in half. Just bring in your Verizon or AT&T wireless bill and turn in your old phone.
And Clint put on 2 tires that last pit stop to gain a lot of spots. Now again, the goal is to keep these spots. Don't give them back up. I know you have 2. You're racing around a lot of people that have 4. But to make this work, you got to keep this track position.
Jeff, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated by some of these pit decisions. I look down and I see Paul Menard. I think that was a great pit decision to be in 19th. You see on the chase grid, he's currently 4 points out. But what does he have? He has fuel. He pitted at lap 206. Can he stretch his fuel to the finish? Right in front of him, Jamie McMurray in 16th. He's 3 points to the good. He's short on fuel. So I like the gamble. We talked about the 27. We were very harsh on the 27, not showing the speed to win. I think Justin Alexander, Paul Menard's a great gamble for the 27. This is what they need to perhaps move them through to the next round.
Steve, to your point, the longest anyone has gone, the longest between stops has been 83 laps. We have 91 laps to go.
But we don't know how many cautions we're going to get.
A lot.
We may get a lot of cautions, and that saved Paul Menard.
We will find out. Field all in line, 2 by 2. Kenseth and Earnhardt in the front row. Green flag back in the air. Kevin Harvick passes the 88, takes second.
Dale Jr. did not get a good restart. That helped the 4-car, but it hurt the 2-car.
Two of Dale Earnhardt Jr., or excuse me, the 2 of Brad Keselowski, who's all over the back bumper of Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the restart. Looked like he was trying to push him. 4-car goes from 4th to 2nd on that restart. Martin Truex Jr. just outside the 41, as is the 22 of Joey Logano. Here comes Harvick. Harvick to the inside for the lead. He'll take it away from Matt Kenseth. And the caution comes out.
And there's your yellow.
The 34 of Brett Moffitt. Saving fuel. If you would have come to pit road, what a perfect opportunity. But hindsight is always 20/20.
It is, but you also have to understand the vehicle you have. If you don't have a winning car and you have to move up through the field.
Get everything we can. Come on.
I hear the 34. Come to pit road, get some tires, try to recover. The 48's going to pick up the free pass. That's a big break for the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. But you have to race the car you have, Rick. You have to decide. If you don't have a winning car, get off strategy. A lot of teams had the opportunity. They squandered that opportunity. We'll see if it pays off for some.
But you got to pit now, right? I mean, you have to pit now. The 4-car needs a pit, dude. Fuel only. They're on 4 tires. I think you'll see pit road full with 89 laps left. You have to know you're going to get some more cautions. You have to be willing to gamble. So surely they're going to pit this time.
And with that, Paul Menard stays out and inherits the lead.
Yes.
Well, Sam Hornish is actually after the restart. He was the most efficient on the restart, but I think all the leaders are going to come. These guys that pitted, they're going to be the leaders.
You're going to see a lot of fuel only.
Matt Kenseth stays out. Strategy being played by all the chasers. Marty.
Jason Ratcliffe made that call for Kenseth to stay out, and as Jeff Burton said, for Kevin Harvick, the leader fuel only comes, and then he has to stall for just a second because Kyle Larson got in his way leaving, Kelly.
Earnhardt Jr. in that 88 has been dealing with car that is loose in and off and tight in the center. He's really been working that track bar. You'll see the quick 2-tire change for the 88.
Keselowski cleanly out in the 2. He did not have anyone blocking him in, and it looks like he'll be first off pit road. Just
behind him, Kurt Busch. And then the 4 of Kevin Harvick. A very close call for Harvick as the 42. Logano's coming off the pit road, but the 42 of Kyle Larson was just coming into his stall as Kevin was trying to leave his stall. Close call for the 42 and the 4. Mentioned strategy huge now as we will have 86 laps to go to the checkered flag, and Matt Kenseth chose to stay out. Denny Hamlin will restart second. Matt Kenseth chooses the inside line, or excuse me, the outside line. Hamlin will be on the inside line.
Yeah, Rick, we basically have 3 groups. We have the front 4 cars who last pitted at lap 193, a group at 206, Kevin Harvick and some of the more dominant cars just off pit road at lap 212.
Back to the NBC Sports restart zone, and we're back underway. 86 laps to go, just outside of most people's fuel window. Kenseth with a great restart. He'll stay out in front of Denny Hamlin, Jamie McMurray, Greg Biffle running 4th. Tony Stewart is 5th. Sam Hornish Jr., Justin Allgaier, Brad Keselowski, Trevor Bayne, and Cole Witts in the top 10. Change of fortune, I would say, for a lot of the chase drivers, as they had dominated the top 10, even the top 12, and now we have 5 that aren't chasers in the top 10.
And the whole key is when you're on pit road last, that's what's scrolling across underneath the names at the top of the screen, because that is what's jumbled up the field. Some decided to pit, some decided to stay out. Now can Kevin Harvick and some of these faster cars work up through the field, but do it cleanly without damaging their race cars.
That's right. It's so important for these guys to recognize the situation they're in. Brad Keselowski, he's got himself clear of all the big traffic. Everybody in front of him will without a doubt have to pit. So Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, all those guys, Kurt Busch rather, all those guys, they still have to work their way through the traffic that Keselowski got through. But you know everybody in front of you has to pit, so don't do anything foolish to take yourself out of an opportunity to get a good finish.
Greg Biffle last stopped on lap 206. Biffle running 4th. Roush Fenway needed something to give them a shot in the arm, a boost of confidence. Greg Biffle on Friday told me he thought his car was pretty good in race trim, and through pit strategy they've put themselves in a position where they can now show it.
And you have to have a good car, because you see Trevor Bayne here. While I think they have a great pit strategy, they just don't have the chassis in the car to keep up with it. They're falling back, unlike the 16 of Greg Biffle. He's attacking the 1 of Jamie McMurray. He knows he's better than he is on fuel. The reason he wants to get by him, because his mirror is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger of that 4 of Kevin Harvick. The longer we run, Kevin Harvick is going to continue to move through traffic.
But here's the strategy. Here, in my opinion, it's a battle for the lead.
Denny Hamlin takes the top spot away from Matt Kenseth. Can Denny Hamlin go back-to-back and win the first 2 races of the chase? He's going to have to come to pit road unless some things play out. Maybe if we get enough cautions, they might stay out.
This gamble here is not to stay out. They hope this thing goes 40, 45 laps, and then we have a caution, because then they'll come and get tires, and their tires will be an advantage. Does anyone dare stay short on fuel and short on tires? That's the gamble that Matt Kenseth and Denny Hamlin. Every gamble is a good one. I could argue all 3. The cautions are going to determine which one was the right one.
Kelly.
Crew Chief Dave Rogers telling Denny Hamlin, yeah, we can make it if we save fuel a bunch under cautions, but it is doable. And when we talked strategy at the start of the race, he said, we will do something dramatic to go for the win. We're not here just to get an easy top 10. We're going to go for it. Then I asked him, would you consider doing anything to help a teammate get a win and get through? And he said, absolutely not. And it was actually Matt Kenseth's philosophy that he agreed with. He said, look, you help your teammates out until the point it costs you something. My guys work way too hard not to go for the win every time out, Marty.
So Kelly, why did his teammate Matt Kenseth and Jason Ratcliffe not stop? Did you see Greg Biffle make the pass there back in the field? We'll check out the radio, the conversation between Matt Kenseth and Jason Ratcliffe.
You sure would that put us? I would have put us 7. Oh, shoot, man. Okay. Hopefully cautions will fall right. What was going to happen right there is we were going to lose a ton of track position. 10-4, I just think. If cautions fall wrong, they'll all make it to the end, but hopefully we'll run long enough to burn the tires up enough for everybody's got to come and get some tires.
So that was the theory of why the 20 did not pit. Steve, I'd love your take on that. They thought if they did pit, they would go way too far back in the field and burn their tires up too, trying to come up through the field, and they were still 7 laps short, so not much to gain there for the 20 team by pitting on that last caution.
Yeah, I hear that, but I also hear a little disappointment in Matt Kenseth's voice when he said, oh, shoot, because he knows and he's seen how this race runs out. I think the big question now isn't Matt Kenseth and Denny Hamlin. The question's behind them. I look at Greg Biffle. I think he can make it from lap 206. Keselowski, though, he's at lap 212. Really, it's a question now of how hard do you want to run. I think Keselowski has got to be up on his horse, running as hard as he can, because he has to force Greg Biffle to feel the pressure coming.
I'm going to disagree with you, crew chief. I'm sorry. Biffle's on 206. Keselowski's on 212. I think Keselowski's fast enough where he should ride right here. He should save fuel. He can put pressure on the 16 of Biffle later. I want to see, if I'm the crew chief on the 2 car, I'm saying you have to save me enough fuel in case this thing goes green. If it gets ready to go green, the 16's in trouble. He can't go that far into green, can he? So I think you have to focus on this being a green flag run, because if it is, and you can make it, you're going to win the race.
There were teammates fighting for position there. Kevin Harvick has 7th. Kurt Busch 8th. Denny Hamlin, who won at Chicagoland a week ago, already locked up a spot in round 2. Trying to do it. The Sprint Cup continues live from the Monster Mile next Sunday. The first elimination race of the playoffs. Coverage starts at 1:30 Eastern from Dover International. Saturday, Xfinity Series, Hisense 200 coverage at 3 p.m. Eastern. NASCAR is on NBCSN. Welcome back to New Hampshire Motor Speedway and the Sylvania 300. Denny Hamlin continuing to lead. Hamlin now has led 11 laps in the 11. Moments ago, Mike Massaro was able to talk with Danica Patrick.
Danica Patrick drove her car back to the garage, but you walked to the care center. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I definitely got hit enough to kind of knock the breath out of me for a second, but to be honest, I went because I've actually been wanting to get my carbon monoxide levels checked for like a month, and I thought, well, I got time now. So I'm fine. I feel fine, but I definitely got hit, and I think that when I got hit in 1 and 2 by the car, not the wall, it seemed like the worst of it. But it's such a shame. We were having a good race, and the car was definitely pretty decent. Now we took 2 tires on that last stop, and it was definitely a little bit too loose. But I was kind of waiting for it to come to me, and you know, Newman's always been super fair, and I know that he was working to get by me. But it sounds like maybe Jeff got into him or something. So it's that time of year, you know, it's the chase. People are racing hard, and they want everything they can get. And maybe Jeff couldn't see exactly where he was in relationship to the 31 and me. So, but still I did not get the good end of the stick.
Glad to see you're okay.
Thanks.
Danica Patrick out of the race.
And again, that was moments ago. Kevin Harvick now trying to reel in the 2 of Brad Keselowski, and they're on a similar pit strategy. They came to pit road at lap 212.
I think, in my opinion, when I look at this race with 68 to go, there's a lot of water downstream that could possibly change the outcome. But these are the 2 I think the focus needs to be on. Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, as you mentioned, Rick, both pitting at lap 212. Both a little short on fuel from what we understand, but they are racing each other. They're the cat and mouse game of how hard do we want to go versus how much fuel do we want to save, Marty.
Well, and they're about 6 laps short. Rodney Childers has told him that, but he has not asked Kevin Harvick to save any fuel. And every lap, Harvick is a little bit faster than Brad Keselowski. This could indeed be the battle for the win. Eventually, these guys are going to have to save some fuel at some point to make it to the end. Very interesting to note, yesterday in practice, Rodney Childers at the very end of a run asked Kevin Harvick, give me a couple of fuel-saving laps. They know what that number is. If he can get by the 2 here and then go into that fuel-saving mode, they know the number they need to hit to save the fuel they need to make it to the end. So good strategy yesterday in practice, all set up then by Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick.
So, Marty, the problem with trying to get by the 2 car and then saving fuel is the longer you go running hard, the harder it is to save fuel. So, Kevin Harvick is really good at saving fuel, but it's the gamble. What they're gambling right now is, do we think another caution's coming out? If they think another caution's coming out, Harvick and Keselowski, they need to be running as hard as they can to try to gain spots, catch Biffle, catch Kenseth, catch Hamlin. But if the caution doesn't come out, they needed to have been saving fuel. They needed to have been waiting and just saving fuel. So this is a big gamble being made by people that are going to need these points.
Well, who wants them to save fuel? Greg Biffle, because he keeps looking up in the mirror going, y'all are supposed to be saving gas, but you're catching me. I want y'all to save gas. Great move by Matt Fuchsia to give Greg Biffle an opportunity. This team needed a shot in the arm. He's running third. Wow, it's going to be hard to hold off those other 2. Third is a great position for this race team to be running at this
so
moment.
many times this race has come down to fuel mileage, and once again, the top 3 right now on a different strategy. As we were in NASCAR nonstop, you saw the 51 of Justin Allgaier into the wall, bringing out the caution. It's the 9th caution of the day, and that has all of my experts up here head spinning. What strategy do you use? Kenseth on pit road. Denny Hamlin on pit road. And he's got some more lead lap cars coming at him. Marty.
Matt Kenseth said the car is taking a really big swing this time. He said it was much looser this run. 4 tires for Matt Kenseth and also an air pressure adjustment. Jamie McMurray pitting here as well. Said the car's a little bit too tight in traffic for those guys. McMurray with 4 tires also leaving pit road. Kelly.
Denny Hamlin in the 11 car said the track is getting freer. He was working the track bar. It was 4 Goodyear tires, an air pressure adjustment, and a wedge adjustment. Sunoco fuel for Denny Hamlin.
It'll be 4 tires for Joey Logano. They haven't had the best handling car all day. Decided to give themselves the best rubber they could to the end of the race.
And you'll be able to see everything as we continue NASCAR nonstop from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Getting ready for another restart here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Jeff, at the beginning of the show, we mentioned how important restarts are. This one may end up being the most important.
Without a doubt. I mean, if we don't get another restart, this one could determine who the winner of the race is. We can see the 16-car Greg Biffle. He's stayed out along with Keselowski, Harvick, and Kurt Busch. The lane that the 16 of Biffle picks will determine where Keselowski starts. We know for a fact that Kevin Harvick's going to start third because he's in third. He's going to be on the inside line. So which line gets moving? You can do everything right, but if the line in front of you doesn't move, then you get trapped behind it. We know Biffle has not been as fast as these other cars have been. So Biffle's picking the top, Keselowski on the bottom, and that puts Harvick right behind Keselowski. I think that's what Harvick wanted.
And this is the whole story. Greg Biffle's on the oldest tires, last time on pit road at 206. Then we have a wave of cars in the 212 area. Has probably the 2 fastest cars today, if not the 3 fastest, between Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, and Kurt Busch. But then you look back, Denny Hamlin, he was just out leading the race. He chose to come get tires. He has about 25 lap fresher tires. Will they pay off in a 55 lap run to the finish?
More on the 4, Marty.
An interesting twist, guys. Rodney Childers actually wanted Kevin Harvick to pit that time. He thought 2 tires and allowing him to race the guys up front would be better. He was watching what he thought was a real-time monitor. That monitor was delayed. By the time he said pit, 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 Kevin Harvick has already passed pit road. So they're out there with the older tires trying to make the fuel stretch and seeing if they can win this race, Rick.
Yeah, remember, points very important. If we look at Kyle Busch, he gains 2 more points because of the 10 and the 55 off the racetrack. Now, 2 by 2 once again. Greg Biffle, Brad Keselowski making up row 1. Green flag back in the air. The 19 of Carl Edwards looked to the inside of that 4 of Kevin Harvick. Just as they were getting into turn number 1, Biffle, can he hang on and stay in front of Keselowski? He does. And NASCAR is saying the restart is under review. So they are going to take another look at that restart. The control car, the 16 of Greg Biffle, as they were coming into that restart zone. Biffle still out in front of Brad Keselowski. Biffle last came on to pit road, lap 206. Keselowski and Kevin Harvick, lap 212. You see Carl Edwards to the inside of Dale Earnhardt Jr. Keselowski all over the back bumper of Greg Biffle. Biffle's going to be pushed hard by the 2 of Brad Keselowski as well as the 4 of Kevin Harvick. Biffle has to go the longest on fuel with just 56 laps to go. Already the engineers, crew chiefs scratching their heads. How much fuel do we actually have? How far can we go?
What Kevin Harvick's hoping for right here is that the 2 will get underneath the 16 in the middle of the corner. That'll slow them both up. If he gets underneath him at the wrong place, they'll lose that momentum. You can see Kevin Harvick make it 3 wide. 16 of Greg Biffle's doing a great job.
The 2 is being posted for a restart violation. NASCAR.
They reviewed it since the beginning. 10-4, buddy.
The 2 being posted. Big implications there for Brad Keselowski and the chase.
Restarts have been a hot topic of conversation, really.
What do you want me to do here, Paul?
You hear Brad asking for some direction. What's he want to do?
26 cars on the lead lap. Brad Keselowski is going to be shown the black flag.
Kevin Harvick obviously has the information. He's not pushing the issue. He seems to be hanging back, waiting for the 2 to peel off.
Again, this is a good opportunity for Harvick to save a little bit of fuel. Like you said, he knows this information. He doesn't have a lot of pressure from behind him from Busch, so he's able to just try to save a little bit more fuel here and then go try to attack the 16 later.
Boyer is on pit road.
Another one of our chase teams with a problem.
And there the 2 makes the left turn onto pit road and will serve its penalty for the restart violation. Let's take a look at this restart once again as Greg Biffle continues to lead.
No speeding.
So just remember, Greg Biffle, the car on the outside lane, is the leader. He is the control car. He is the opportunity. He needs to maintain speed. You see him at about 45 miles an hour. He can go anytime in this box. It looks to me that NASCAR has the right decision, perhaps, because Keselowski, according to the GPS, accelerated quicker. Was Greg Biffle spinning the tires? I don't know. There's a lot of question marks. This is really a ball and strike call. But you see right here, Greg Biffle doesn't go. The 2 tries to go.
And we've got to reiterate, the red lines and those pointers that are in there, that's ours. NASCAR does not look at that information when they make a decision.
It's a ball and strike call. I don't know the right answer. We're not NASCAR. We don't make this decision. They are obviously saying that the 16 didn't want to go yet. The 2 pushed the issue. That's the call they're making in the tower. Jeff, you're the driver. You have a better idea of what happens in the restart zone than I do.
I think what's so hard for NASCAR is you have a rule and you have to enforce it. If Keselowski went before the 16 of Biffle, if he went before him, you have to make the call. You don't want to make the call. You want all the stuff to happen on the racetrack. But if you feel like the 2 went before he was supposed to go, then you have to make the call. You see Harvick making a run for the lead.
And NASCAR has continued to tell the drivers in the drivers' meeting, don't make us make that call, as Kevin Harvick looks to the inside for the lead. Greg Biffle still trying to hold on to it as he runs that higher line. Now they're door by door. Down the backstretch they go. Harvick making the move to the inside, and Harvick back to the front. Does Harvick have to start conserving fuel now that he's out front and he is dictating the pace? Does he have to start conserving fuel?
Well, I think now he can. Now he can just race to the front bumper of Greg Biffle. Now that Kevin Harvick's in front of Greg Biffle, he can just continue to race his mirror. 3 car lengths, 2 car lengths. He has the best car. He can be pretty aggressive. He can back right up to the 16 to save as much fuel as possible.
And the advantage he has is that the 16 has to do the same thing. The 16 can't force the issue with the 4 car. We know the 16 needs more laps of caution than Harvick does. So the 16 cannot push the issue with Harvick. This is a time that Harvick can really save a lot of fuel.
Kevin Harvick out front. Greg Biffle running second. Hamlin, Kenseth, Kurt Busch the top 5. We go NASCAR nonstop. Denny Hamlin now as Greg Biffle has dropped back to 4th. Matt Kenseth running 3rd, but the fastest car on the track is the 11 of Denny Hamlin, who came to pit road on lap 239. Not a fuel issue for Denny Hamlin. He's going very hard right now.
He knows that the 4 is in fuel conservation mode. That's the 11's goal. He already has a win in the bank. There's nothing for him to lose. He's going to push this 4 car as hard as he can. At some point, Kevin Harvick is going to have to decide, have I saved enough fuel to hold him off, or do I have to continue to save, Marty?
Well, Steve, even before he took the lead from Greg Biffle a moment ago, Tim Fedewa, spotter for Kevin Harvick, told him, listen, we've got to start saving fuel. So he was sort of in fuel-saving mode, getting around the 16 car. But then once he got past him and saw the 11 coming, Rodney Childers said, you know the 11's going to run us hard. Do all you can do to keep him behind you, but also stretch that fuel. It's been since March since Kevin Harvick won. He's going to do everything he can to keep it up front.
And Marty, I think part of this decision is based on what they feel like they have to do to transfer to the next round. If they came into this race just completely believing that they have to win in order to transfer, then you do one thing. But if you analyze, you say Bowyer's not running well, Kyle Busch has had problems, Keselowski now he's a lap down because of the penalty. If you look and analyze, do you then say, you know what, second, third's okay? That's good enough to move us into the chase, and those decisions are all that thought process will go into making a decision on what the 4-car wants to do right now.
But Jeff, how difficult is that when you have that apple sitting out there? I mean, Kevin Harvick knows if he wins this race, he advances to the second round.
He also knows if he runs out of fuel, he'll have to win Dover. And like Steve said at the beginning of the show, don't leave New Hampshire knowing that you have to win Dover. Marty.
And Jeff, remember, he told us in the pre-race show, there's a lot of ways for us to get to round 2. We do not have to win to get to round 2. So they know all they need to leave here is with a top 3 finish. But right now, he's able to keep in front of the 11 and the 20.
And again, this battle now taking place between Harvick and Hamlin would have been a 3-car battle if it wouldn't have been for the restart penalty that Brad Keselowski suffered, Dave.
And Rick, Brad was so confused because when he got word that he was going to be black flagged and had to make a pass-through penalty, he was behind Greg Biffle. He said, how can I, have the penalty when I'm behind the guy? But that's not when the call was made, and the call was made on the restart. Now his spotter, Joey Meyer, is trying to direct him through traffic. A car in front of him is either, quote, a lapped car, or it's given a number. If he gives it a number, that car is worth a point. Brad came out 25th and last on the lead lap. Now everyone he passes on this lap is a point and toward the championship.
Now Brad Keselowski still on the lead lap. He's running 24th now. There are 25 on the lead lap. See the battle for the lead. This is battle for second now.
Now let's go back to the restart for just a moment. The drivers have been telling NASCAR, we want you to make calls. They feel like that they want the rules, and they want to have to abide by them, because if not, then it's free reign for everybody. The problem is when they call it on you. Then you feel like, well, I didn't do it. They shouldn't have been the penalty on me. But, the drivers continually push this restart thing, and it's gone on and on and on. And NASCAR has said, you know what? Enough's enough. We're going to start penalizing.
Denny Hamlin's in a difficult position. He has his teammate behind him. His teammate has run him down. If the two of these cars battle side by side, that will put a little gap between them and the 4 of Kevin Harvick, and make Kevin Harvick have an opportunity to not have to run as hard. Denny Hamlin wants him to run as hard as he possibly can so that he can get up there and win this race. But he's got Matt Kenseth behind him, so he's got to work as hard as he can to keep Kenseth behind him.
Absolutely, and I look farther back because we know cautions can come out. We have Joey Logano consistently run some of the fastest laps on the track in 4th. So these guys all have to play the game of how hard do they run versus fuel versus the 4-car. But these two Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, they're battling hard. One with a win, one needing a win, but you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know their teammates. They're going to battle hard to the finish for the win.
Denny Hamlin running second, already has a win, already has that free pass into round number 2 of the chase. And Mike, moments ago we saw the 15 come to pit road. What were they doing?
Well, yeah, obviously an unscheduled pit stop on lap 247 for Clint Bowyer, just adding to the frustration of the weekend for him. They thought he had a right front tire going down. They came into pit road, they changed all 4 tires. They looked at the right front. It didn't appear to be flat. It may have been going soft, but it wasn't completely flat. It looked like it was up, but obviously not a situation the 15 wanted to experience. They needed to come away with a pretty good run today.
Kevin Harvick on a different pit strategy than Denny Hamlin running second, who will have enough fuel to get to the end. We go NASCAR nonstop. Today's Mobile One performance factors.
Simple. Kevin Harvick pitted at lap 212, trying to stretch his fuel and his tires. Matt Kenseth, Denny Hamlin, Jeff, they pitted at 239.
Matt Kenseth and Denny Hamlin, they're going to push the 4-car as hard as they can. They want to apply as much pressure as they possibly can to try to make the 4-car burn too much fuel and ultimately run out.
And Matt Kenseth has been able to get by Denny Hamlin for the second spot. Hamlin has fallen back. Kenseth has been able to make the move. Now can he reel in the 4 of Kevin Harvick? We listened in moments ago to the 11 as far as strategy. Here's what they had to say on the radio.
My calculations say that 4 car cannot make it. Cannot make it. Make sure you don't burn up your stuff.
And so that's the strategy of the 11. How about the strategy of the 4? This is their radio.
Feel like you're getting 2 A laps right here or not? How many do I need? Well, probably 12 total, but that was starting at the beginning of the run, and that's not saving anything under caution like you did.
And what makes me nervous about that is when he said, "How many do I need?" That makes me nervous because
that sounded like I hadn't saved any.
Oh, if the driver doesn't know how many laps he needed to save, then how much do you know to save? So that makes me nervous.
Marty, what about the 20? Kenseth now up to second.
Well, and clearly catching that 4 car as well. A moment ago, he was behind his teammate Denny Hamlin, and he said, "I burned up my tires here." He told Jason Ratcliffe, "I'm going to back up for a moment, let him cool down, and then make a run at the 11. About 3 laps later, he passed the 11, and now he's reeling in the 4 because Jason Ratcliffe told him on the radio, "You're doing a really good job. Someone needs to put pressure on that 4 car. If we do, I don't think he can make it the rest of the way on fuel." This is getting really fun, isn't it, guys?
Absolutely. Now it comes down to 22 laps. Does Harvick have enough? And if he does have enough, can he still hold off Matt Kenseth, who is charging to the front?
Talked about the chase. You know, this would be stressful in and of itself if this race didn't have the ramifications that it has. You know, you're trying to win a race. Winning these races is a special thing. It's very, very difficult to win a Sprint Cup Series race beyond imaginability how hard it is. But then you add, if the 4 car runs out, no matter how good of a year he's had, his championship hopes may be over. So you add that to it, and that's why this chase adds so much pressure to what we're doing. That 4 car, the pit road, people in the pit box, Kevin Harvick, everybody is exceptionally nervous right now.
25 cars on the lead lap. If Harvick were to run out and finish 25th, he loses 24 points. Again, a point a position.
You call it 25 cars. I mean, no. There's 24 points in the lead lap. Because right now it's all about points. So what's the gamble? Because if he makes it, we keep talking about the negative. What if he makes it?
If he wins, he is in the second round.
He could take over off, go there, have a good time, ride around 5th, unlike they would. They run in the top 2, it seems like, every week. If he makes it, risk versus reward. Jeff, which would you? Come on, you're arguing both sides. Which would you do if you're Kevin Harvick?
Oh, I love what the 4 car did. I love the plan. I just hope he saved enough. I hope he knew the information. If you have this strategy, which I thought was the right strategy, you have to be willing to finish 3rd, though. You have to say, you know what, I got to save enough. If Kevin Harvick had the information early enough and he feels like he had that and could save it, perfect strategy. If he got it late, then I want to go back and finish 4th, 5th, or 6th. I want to be saving a tremendous amount of fuel.
Their strategy coming in was they didn't want to be in a position where they had to win at Dover, where they ultimately had to win to advance. If they finish where they are now, of course, they advance because they get the win. If they finish in the top 2 and 3, it's still a very good points day for this team, and they don't have to win. They can still point their way in.
But, Rick, with 18 to go, you can only save so much fuel. So as we discuss the decision's made. There isn't a switch he can flip to save enough in 18 laps if he hasn't saved yet. This is something you had to do over the whole run. You heard the radio communications earlier. Right, Jeff? This is something you need to know from the word go. A little every lap. You can't save quarts or gallons of fuel in 15 laps.
And we saw it poking earlier in the year. We saw the leaders run themselves out of fuel. Matt Kenseth won the race. The leaders were pushing each other so hard that they were running too hard with the amount of fuel that they had. They all ran out. There, Matt Kenseth was to take advantage of it. So that's what Kevin Harvick has needed to guard against during this entire run.
And Matt Kenseth took advantage of maybe an ill handling of number 11. Kelly, what were they saying as they dropped back to 3rd?
Well, first Denny Hamlin came over and said he got really tight for some reason, but more importantly, it sounded like, although it was difficult to make out, that he might have an issue with one of his tires. The pit crew here at the 11 sprung into action, but so far they've not called him down. They're just monitoring it for now.
Well, the only guy in the field that can afford to have an issue right now is Denny Hamlin, because he won last week and he's on to round 2.
And, you know, even though Kevin Harvick is out front leading this race and running the fastest lap time, he may still be saving. As fast as we've seen him all day long. I mean, we're in here thinking, well, he's running really fast, but as fast as he's been, he could be running that fast and saving fuel. one thing too, I think we ought to should consider. If he runs out, he's not going to be the first car in the lead lap or the last car in the lead lap. If he runs out on the green, he could be 2 laps down. If you run out at the wrong place, if you run out coming out of turn 2, and you have to coast all the way down the back straightaway and on to pit road, you're not going to finish 24th.
Right.
You might finish 30th.
The counter argument is he doesn't have to make it to the start-finish line. If he has fuel getting into turn 3, he's going to finish in the top 5 or 10.
Yes.
And guys, as I look at the numbers here, 74 plus 14 to go puts you at 88. The pit window, 82 to 88 laps. Although Childers said, guys, I don't think we're going to be, in our window. So maybe they weren't getting that good a gas mileage.
And they had 6 laps of caution. You can save a lot of fuel. That could save you 2.5 to 3 laps. But remember at Watkins Glen, guys, he ran out of gas with a corner to go. It could come down that thing. But also, he made it farther than you and I ever dreamt he could, Jeff. So Kevin Harvick's proved he could do it. He proved he could save enough fuel. What Matt Kenseth's thinking right now is forget about the fuel. If I catch him and pass him, it's not going to matter if he makes it or not.
I was Kevin Harvick's teammate for a long time, and one thing Kevin did for several years, in every single practice, he would go out and he would run and he would figure out how to save fuel. And he set a trend in the garage for doing that. You go out and you see lap times, you're like, why is Kevin Harvick so slow? And everybody's starting to realize it. You know what? Kevin Harvick's figuring out what his fuel mileage is. Now a lot of people do it. But all those years of understanding how to save fuel, that is a down payment on having a good day like you're possibly going to have today.
12.
Good job, buddy. You're making him burn that gas. Good job.
That is the 20 team telling him you're making him burn the gas. You're making him run hard. 12 laps to go when they get back to the line. 11 laps, Marty.
And that was Chris Osborne saying that several times to Matt Kenseth on the radio. You're making him burn that gas. But to me, there's been shockingly little conversation on Kevin Harvick's radio about fuel. You guys all heard the one conversation about fuel. Other than that, Tim Fiedler did say one time we need to save fuel. We mentioned that earlier when he went out on Biffle. No conversation since then about fuel. So I'm wondering if they're happy with the numbers they're seeing from Kevin Harvick. Remember, again, they did this in practice yesterday, so they know the number they need to hit.
Marty, I would imagine that's just they trust him. They trust him to handle it. They don't feel like they need to tell him how to handle it, to remind him that he needs to handle it. They just trust him that he's going to do it.
Guys, as we talk about the leader, continue to talk about who's going to win the race. Real quick, we talk about points and how you save points. Jimmy Johnson was the lucky dog just a little bit ago after a flat left front tire. He has fought back, currently running in the 8th position, and Brad Keselowski is 17th. That's what we talk about when we talk about points. You have to recover. The 48, they didn't want to run 8th. But just one caution ago, they were outside the lead lap in the 20s. A great recovery by the 48. This could be the race they circle that moves them forward into round 2.
How about Brad Keselowski, who has fallen all the way back to 17th now?
I think that's a great recovery, though. He was 25th
after the penalty. So he battled back. I guess you should be saying he moved up to 17th, but after that restart penalty, he's all the way back to 17th.
There for a while, he'd fallen to 23rd, 24th in that range. So working himself back up to 17th with cars in front of him that he could go past, so he could still claw a top 15 out of this.
Yeah, those are the recoveries people don't talk about, but those are a lot of points when it comes to the next round and the next round.
Under 8 to go. The fuel watch is still on for the 4 of Kevin Harvick. Does he have enough gas, enough fuel to get all the way around 8 more times? That is the big question. Has he been saving fuel?
I'm nervous for him.
Matt Kenseth hopes he hasn't been saving enough fuel.
I'm nervous for Matt Kenseth. This is what racing is all about. This is what we talk about. It doesn't have to be door-to-door banging fenders to have a great race. This right here is a chess match. It's a chess match while performing your task. Driving around New Hampshire Motor Speedway in sub 30 seconds lap, worrying about traffic, worrying about your brakes, worrying about fuels. These drivers have to be in complete control of the entire situation.
They continue to work by some of the slower traffic. That is helping Kevin Harvick as he doesn't have that 20 of Matt Kenseth all over his back bumper still. Marty?
Rick, remember when they pitted, we said he was 6 laps short. That's what Rodney Childers told him. We'll see how much fuel Kevin Harvick has saved here, but now 6 to go. So remember when they pitted, they were 6 laps short from making it to the end. We'll see how much Harvick has saved.
We entered that window. Remember, we had a caution in between the time that he was on pit road and now. So there were a few laps under caution where you're able to save fuel there.
It's not just the win. As Jeff pointed out, if they do run out of gas, win. If you take the white flag, that's going to save you a lot of points if you run out with 2 to go. So every ounce of fuel is going to matter.
And I think everyone's on the edge of their seat right now wondering, can Kevin Harvick make it all the way? 5 to go. Matt Kenseth running second. Denny Hamlin third. Joey Logano fourth. Great day for Greg Biffle. An amazing run for Greg Biffle. He came onto pit road at lap 206, so he has to save fuel if he wants to hold on to that position.
He has to go 6 laps farther than our leader, Kevin Harvick.
Kevin Harvick, we think, has saved fuel. We don't know if he saved enough. Has Greg Biffle saved enough? Can he hang on for a top 5, potentially top 10 finish?
Nothing's ever easy, Steve, is it? I mean, here's a 4-car dominating the race. I mean, he's dominating, going to win it easy. A few cautions at the wrong time. Guess what? Now you have to manage fuel. You have all these things going on. That's why racing is so difficult and it's so hard to win these races.
3 laps to go. 3 miles of fuel is what he needs. Slow through the turns. Back to the gas. Down the backstretch. And he's out of gas. You just heard him. We ran out of gas. Not enough fuel saved. Kevin Harvick's going to come to pit road. Matt Kenseth out in front of the field now. Big points implications for the 4 team. They needed a great finish. They're on pit road and they're losing spots. And as you mentioned, points as every car goes by them.
Now the question is, will the car refire? How much fuel did it run out? You see him putting fuel in, but it can't leave until it has fuel pressure. He's stalling, constantly stuck, wasting time. He does get it fired, though. Going to rejoin, but going to be at least a lap down.
And the lap down cars start at 23rd. The 88 of Dale Earnhardt Jr. also on pit road. The white flag is in the air one more time around. 41 of Kurt Busch could be out of gas. Matt Kenseth coming through the turns 1 and 2 down the backstretch he goes. Kenseth coming to pit road on lap 239, giving him enough fuel to go all the way to the checkered flag. Matt Kenseth trying to punch his ticket to the second round of the chase. Kenseth will win at New Hampshire.
How about that? Good job, buddy.
As we wait for the cars to cross the start-finish line, Hamlin, Logano. Biffle ends up 4th. He was 6 laps shorter as far as fuel than Kevin Harvick, but Harvick runs out. Biffle hangs on for a top 5. Carl Edwards, top 5. Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Martin Truex Jr., Casey Kane, and Ryan Newman. Top 10 finishes. You see Kevin Harvick making his way back around through 3 and 4. We knew it was going to be close. It ended up being a little too short for Kevin Harvick, but worked out perfectly for Matt Kenseth. Momentum in Joe Gibbs Racing. Joe Gibbs Racing has won 4 consecutive races. It wasn't with 4 different drivers. 13 wins in 2015. What an impressive list to join.
With 8 races to go.
A lot of time and a lot of momentum behind them. Our score sheet showing Kevin Harvick finishing 21st. If you do the math, he lost 20 points. Dale Earnhardt Jr. 25th. Clint Boyer 26th as far as chasers and where they end up. 1 race to go before the cutoff. The bottom 4 in points in the chase do not advance into round 2. You win and you advance. That's exactly what Matt Kenseth was able to do today at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We come back. He's in victory lane. Motor Speedway. It didn't take long for Matt Kenseth to get to victory lane. Let's go there now. Mike Massaro.
And Matt Kenseth just unbuckling right now. Just arrived in victory lane, getting himself out of that race car. Obviously a big celebration about to erupt down here as Matt Kenseth has now punched his ticket to round 2. And he may not have had the most dominant race car today, but he was definitely there to capitalize when Kevin Harvick ran out of fuel. When you saw that 4-car sputter, what were your thoughts?
You know, we had to be there to win it. These Dollar General guys did a great job today. We didn't pit that one time. I was like, oh, and Jason's like, it's fine, relax. And then we made it to the front faster than we thought. I was giving Kevin everything I got. I thought he was going to beat us. He had a better car today. And I guess he was just a little short on fuel. So this is unbelievable. This feels unbelievable. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dollar General, DeWalt, Toyota, TRD, Gatorade, Citizen Watches, Wiley Access, and Reese's.
Basic understanding, and it's an entertainment sport, not a fair sport. But you know, we had a great car. The team on the Miller Lite Ford Penske team was really strong. I don't know if we would have been able to beat the 20 and 11. It looked like they probably had 4 tires, but like you said, heck of a rebound. Really proud of my guys to come back and get a top 12 out of that, you know, without getting another yell or catching another brakes after the black flag. So part of it.
How do you believe this sets you up for Dover then?
Not as well as I think could have, but not terribly.
Brad Keselowski made up ground there at the end after having to go through with a pass-through penalty.
The penalty came on the restart. We want to show you once again what took place. Brad Keselowski was second. Greg Biffle was the lead car.
See, Biffle keeps his speed. It stays a steady 44 mile an hour all the way into the zone. Keselowski leaves before Biffle does. So I know that Keselowski's not happy with the call. It looks like Biffle slows down right here on the overhead, but we see by those speed icons, he was kept his speed, and the 2-car left before that second line. So NASCAR got this right.
So you're saying you agree? You agree with the call that was made by NASCAR?
Okay, listen, what's difficult about this is they didn't make the call last week.
Sure.
Okay, that's what makes this difficult. But at the same time, all the drivers have been saying, look, we need you to make these calls. They made it this week. That was the right call. What Brad's going to say is you didn't make it last week, so why make it this week? And that is what makes it difficult.
There's not much to add. He's absolutely right. The point is that there's been inconsistencies till now, but NASCAR has mentioned last week they added cameras, they added some things to help them make these calls. They didn't feel like they were as prepared as they needed to be to make some of these calls in past races. They have mentioned it, that if that continues, they're going to have to. Don't put us in a corner. Don't make us make a call. Today, I agree with NASCAR. I agree with Jeff Burton. I believe the 2 accelerated before. Now, he might have done it last week or 2 weeks ago, but it doesn't matter. In today's NASCAR, he accelerated first. He wasn't the leader. I agree with the call as well.
And moments ago, Kelly Stavis caught up with Jimmy Johnson.
A flat tire sent Jimmy Johnson from 3rd all the way back to 23rd, but you recover for a 6th place finish. How did you guys get it done?
Just a good race car. We were fortunate to catch a couple quick cautions to get us back on the lead lap and get new tires on the car. And from there, we had to go racing, I think, with 50 or so to go. And the car was strong, maybe not a race-winning car, but certainly a top 5 car. And I think we got inside the top 10, and then it sounds like some guys ran out of fuel and got us to 6, which I'm really happy about with the slowest post-service to Chevrolet. We had to deal with a lot of adversity today and overcame and got a great finish.
After 2 solid finishes, what do you think the game plan will be headed into Dover?
You can't put your guard down. You've got to go in and race. Dover's a great track for us. A victory could be a huge shot in the arm for the team and really get some great momentum going for us. So we'll go there and give 100%, and hopefully it's a trophy. If not, hopefully it's advancing in the next round.
Great recovery today for the 48 team.
Jimmy Johnson looking for his 7th championship, but he's got to get out of round 1 if he wants to have an opportunity. Take a look at the chase grid now after 2 races. Kenseth and Hamlin, both with wins. You win and you advance. Carl Edwards pretty comfortable in the point situation. You look all the way down to Brad Keselowski after that penalty on the restart, 16 points in front of the cut line.
I like Jimmy Johnson on up a little bit better, plus 27. I think they're going to feel good short of a DNF at Dover. They can go do what they need to do. But we saw Kevin Harvick easily lose a little over 20 points in the last lap of this race. So Ryan Newman, Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, that is still in the range of missing out leaving Dover.
Harvick's got to win Dover. Boyer, if the penalty's upheld, he's got to win Dover. Everybody else can race their way in. We'll have to see as that race evolves what strategies his teams need, because Paul Menard only 1 point out. Dale Jr., he's only 1 point in. McMurray 2 points in. Dover's going to be very interesting, isn't it, Steve?
The Iron Man of NASCAR, Jeff Gordon, 12 points in front of the cut line. Marty Snyder's with him.
And he is checking out that chase grid, believe me. But let's first talk about the day here at New Hampshire. Boy, it seemed like once you guys got back to 25th, it was almost impossible to get back to the top 10, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, it was. It was tough to pass today, and this place is always tough to pass. But we started further off than we expected. But I got to give Alan and all the team, everybody on this Drive in Hunger team, a lot of credit, man. They worked hard, made some big adjustments, brought the car to life, and then we just needed some long green flag runs. Had a couple restarts that didn't go well. Some maybe pit stops that maybe the sequence wasn't great, but there at the end, that last one. That really helped us a ton. I mean, we had a long green flag run, had a decent restart, and we're just able to have, we're able to pick off cars. Of course, a couple ran out of fuel as well, but it was a good way to close out the day.
You're studying that chase grid. What kind of race do you think we'll see at Dover, and how does that set you up for this this first cut race?
Well, Harvick's going to be on a tear, maybe even Kyle Busch. Those guys have had some unfortunate circumstances, but they're so fast and capable of winning next week at Dover or anywhere. And so, those guys want to be in this thing really bad. We've got to go there and be solid. I mean, we won there last year. I'd love to be able to go back and repeat that. So we're going to go, fighting hard. We certainly have a little bit of a cushion, but not enough of a cushion where we can go run easy.
12 points doesn't feel like a lot of a cushion, but a nice 7th place finish today for Jeff Gordon.
Finish there for Jeff Gordon. Kevin Harvick got out of the car. We asked to talk to him. He chose to not take our interview. Obviously, a disappointing day for him after leading so many laps here, 216 of the 300 laps. They run out of fuel 3 laps before the end of the race. And Dave Burns, moments ago, was able to catch up with Carl Edwards.
Perhaps not the finish that Carl Edwards was looking for, but overall a top 5. How does that set you up going into the final race of round 1?
Well, with 33 points is good, which is great. Things are going according to plan. We're just having good, fast cars and good, solid runs, and I cannot thank my guys enough for sticking with it today. They fought hard. Darian took a really good gamble there at the end, and it worked out. And Sport Clips coming on board, that's huge for us. They're great people, and they really love racing, so it's cool to represent them well here. And now we'll go to Dover and have some fun.
You had to fight back a couple of times, once because you were the guy that had 4 tires, once because the fuel can was still attached when you left the box. How did you get through that?
Well, my guys just never quit. They did a great job. Little things like that are going to happen when you're pushing it. My guys are the fastest on pit road. I mean, they've won us races. They put me up front, and I think in the end, we ended up right back where we were, so we recovered, right back where we deserved to be. So just a fun day. It's nice to qualify first and run well.
Confidence from today's pole sitter finishing 5th today.
And a smile on his face as he gets that top 10 finish. We look at the unofficial results. Kenseth and Hamlin now not only 1 and 2 in this race, but also 1 and 2 as they will advance to round 2.
Yeah, good runs by a lot of Chase guys. But look at Greg Biffle in 4th and Casey Kane in 9th. 2 guys trying to spoil the party for the Chase drivers.
Yeah, you see here on page 2, Tony Stewart, 11th. That's a guy that needed a good shot in the arm. Brad Keselowski, you can't say enough about that recovery to get to 12th. And then even Jay McMurray, Paul McNard, these are guys that were running a little bit behind at the start of the race, fought hard to still end up in the top 15.
21st through 30th. See Chasers Kevin Harvick after running out of fuel. Dale Earnhardt Jr. also out of fuel. Clint Boyer finishing 26th, 2 laps down. And you have to go back even further before you see Kyle Busch's name. Got into the wall, the right front tire went down. They had damage, were in the garage for 38 laps before they were able to get back out on track. But they made up about 5 spots, 5 positions by coming back out on the track. And every point is very important as we look at the chase grid through 2 races. Only 1 race to go before we advance to round 2. And the point situation, if we just mentioned Kyle Busch, he's 13th. He's 1 point behind Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's right there on the cut line.
Yeah, it's going to get really tightened over. Any mistakes at all, you're going to be knocked out. But how about Matt Kenseth? Let's don't, he won the race. I feel like we're not talking about him enough. But, he is a championship caliber driver driving exceptionally fast race cars. Matt Kenseth is going to be very hard to beat for this championship.
What have we learned in the last 2 weeks? It's 400 laps at Dover. I wouldn't turn it off at lap 395 because points change a lot in the last 5 laps of both race 1 and now race 2 of this first round of the chase.
And next Sunday, The NASCAR playoffs first elimination race, live from Dover International Speedway. Sprint Cup Series racing from the Monster Mile, all starting at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Saturday, it's going to be Xfinity Series racing, the Hisense 200, beginning at 3 p.m. Eastern. Coming up, more post-race coverage from New Hampshire with Chris Devoda, Kyle Petty, and Brian Vickers.